Chapter 1274. Tan Xiu had a lot of experience in the past, so he understood a few things very well. There were countless hidden dragons and crouching tigers in the immortal world, and only by keeping a low profile could one live longer. Conversely, if one wanted to die faster, just like the long-robed old man, a moment of impulse and anger eventually led to his brutal death. Interesting. A smile outlined on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth. He found that the other gamblers in the surroundings had gone far away, leaving only him and Gu Yan in the vicinity of the chubby middle-aged trio. The chubby middle-aged man also noticed that Tan Xiu and Gu Yan hadn't left. He just glanced at them a few times and knew that the man and woman didn't react to his behavior, nor did they show any hostility toward him. Therefore, he was a bit surprised to see that the two still looked calm as if nothing had happened. She's the best. Her figure and temperament are definitely the best. If I'm not mistaken, her looks are definitely top-notch. The chubby middle-aged man's sharp eyes swept over Gu Yan's hand that was holding Tan Xiu's arm and immediately laughed. You have an extraordinary bearing, little brother. I really admire you. Can you come over and have a seat? Tan Xiu slightly raised his brows and lightly smiled. I was just scared by the number 1 powerhouse in Hessen Castle, so I'll pass to avoid making a fool of myself. You can come over yourself if you want to have some fun, sir. A glint flashed in the chubby middle-aged man's eyes. He immediately patted the shoulders of the two coquettish women and floated to the front of Tan Xiu and Gu Yan. After sitting on the other side of Tan Xiu, he lightly smiled and said, Little brother, have you just met Madame Empyrean Pole? That poor woman will come to the stargazing pavilion every millennium, hoping that the Empyrean Pole old man will come back. It's no secret. A blush flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes before he smilingly said, It's just a quick meeting. I still have to maintain a fearful posture in front of a powerhouse. But you're a bit interesting, sir. You seem to be quite familiar with this master and disciple, no? The fat middle-aged man laughed heartily and said, Familiar? It's more than familiar. You're very interesting, very interesting. I haven't met such an interesting young man like you for many, many years. Tell me, where are you from? Tan Xiu calmly said, You're just a trivial rogue cultivator who drifts around the world. Do you think I'm very young? The chubby middle-aged man couldn't help but laugh. You're still a kid in my eyes. Dolls? Tan Xiu turned his head and exchanged glances with Gu Yan. Both of them had a smile in their eyes. When Tan Xiu turned his head back, he nodded and smilingly said, That's right. I'm indeed a child. You can call me Great Tang Heavenly Emperor, or you can call me Great Tang Emperor. How should I address you? Great Tang Heavenly Emperor? The chubby middle-aged man couldn't help but laugh. He shook his head and smilingly said, You really don't know how to be modest, kid. Even they don't dare to use the title of Heavenly Emperor. Great Tang Lil Bro, I think you're very interesting, so why don't we make a bet next time? I'll tell you my title if you win, but if you lose, can you let me see the appearance of this beauty beside you? The smile on Tan Xiu's face slightly receded and he calmly said, Celestial Pole Oldman once told me that curiosity can kill a man. If you want to make friends with me, then don't mention this matter again. We can have some fun if you have any ill intentions. The chubby middle-aged man stared blankly and slightly furrowed his brows. As far as he knew, Celestial Pole Oldman had been missing for thousands of years, yet this young man in front of him said that he had personally spoken to him. Something was wrong, wasn't it? Could it be that this young man had just seen Celestial Pole Oldman recently? The chubby middle-aged man pondered for a moment and was about to speak when his complexion slightly changed. He suddenly recalled that Tan Xiu asked him if he thought he was young. Could it be? Is he a reincarnated almighty expert? That's right. Ever since his woman killed that long-robed, profound, immortal old man, everyone else in the surroundings had hidden far away, except for the two of them. Even his words revealed a lofty and aloof tone. Yet this young man was neither servile nor overbearing and had an extraordinary bearing. It was impossible for a young man to maintain such a state of mind in front of him. The chubby middle-aged man shot a deep look at Tan Xiu and said, Forget about the request I just made. But you need to answer another question of mine, mister. Tan Xiu chuckled and said, You're really too curious, huh? Tell me, I want to hear what your question is. What's the relationship between the two of you? Asked the chubby middle-aged man. She's my disciple, said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. She's also his woman. Gu Yen tightened her grip on Tan Xiu's arm, and the aura of a golden immortal flashed away. The chubby middle-aged man took a deep breath and immediately realized that his previous guess was correct. This young man in front of him was probably a reincarnated almighty expert. Else, how could he have a golden immortal as his disciple who had just stepped into the ordinary immortal stage? Even his golden immortal disciple was just half a step away from the perfected golden immortal stage. A smile outlined on the chubby middle-aged man's face as he lightly smiled and said, "No matter what your identity was, you're just an ordinary immortal in my eyes now. Great Tang Lil Bro, I'm Nine Nether Swordmeister. You can call me Brother Nine Nether." Nine Nether Swordmeister? A cold glint flashed in the eyes of Gu Yen, at Tan Xiu's side. This Nine Nether Swordmeister was almost as famous as her. He was also a terrifying madman in the immortal world and was also a perfected golden immortal. Both of them were regarded as terrifying devils by countless people. Grave Burial Sect? Nine Nether Swordmeister? A complicated look flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes as he nodded and said, "We'll be friends in the future. I'm too poor right now to buy some golden immortal gladiators, so I'll ask you 3 times as a greeting gift. I won't refuse if I can do it in the future." 3 times as a favor? A glint flashed in Nine Nether Swordmeister's eyes as he meaningfully sized up Tan Xiu. Then he nodded and said, "Great Tang Lil Bro, this greeting gift is very heavy, so I'll accept it. Since we're friends, then the greeting gift must be from both sides. How many golden immortal gladiators do you need, Great Tang Lil Bro? I'll pay for it." Ha! Tan Xiu burst into laughter and gave a thumbs up in praise. "You're really generous, Brother Nine Nether. 20 golden immortal gladiators cost 150 million immortal crystals. That's a lot more than the 1 million immortal crystals Madame Empyrean Pole gave you and the 10 million immortal crystals meal from the Stargazing Pavilion. I'll accept it since we're friends." Since when did Empyrean Pole Madam become so generous? Nine Nether Swordmeister was surprised. "I'm not familiar with her," replied Tan Xiu with a faint smile. Nine Nether Swordmeister couldn't help laughing and shot Tan Xiu an admiring look, saying, "You're really interesting, Great Tang Lil Bro. Others are eager to have a relationship with a powerhouse like Madame Empyrean Pole, yet you directly said that you're not familiar with her. That's really interesting." "I've always been honest to my friends," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "I like honesty between friends." Nine Nether Swordmeister laughed aloud. "Great Tang Lil Bro, since you've given me 3 requests, then I'll mention one now. There will be a big bet here 8 months later, and I'm one of the participants. I want to ask you to help me win the bet, Great Tang Lil Bro. How about it?" "Enemies?" asked Tan Xiu. "You can say so." Nine Nether Swordmeister nodded. "There are some grudges between us that Madame Empyrean Pole personally presided over. She wants to help us resolve the enmity and finally settle the bet. No matter who wins or loses, the enmity will come to an end. I'll get huge benefits if I win, but my vitality will be greatly damaged if I lose. I can't guarantee that you'll win with 100% certainty." Tan Xiu nodded. "I can only try my best." "Don't worry," said Nine Nether Swordmeister. "I won't put all my hopes on you. You just need to follow me, give me advice, and give me some advice. I won't blame you even if I lose in the end." At this moment, more than a dozen guards of the convict arena came to the front of them. The chief steward narrowed his eyes and looked at Nine Nether Swordmeister, saying, "If you know the rules of the convict arena, then please pay a fine of 1 million immortal crystals. If you don't, our people are willing to explain it to you." Nine Nether Swordmeister flicked his fingers and an interspatial ring appeared in the chief steward's hand. As he scanned it with his immortal sense, he immediately nodded and said, "You're all honored guests of the convict arena, so I hope you won't go too far. You can gamble with your enemies if you don't feel happy here and win everything from them. It's far more interesting than killing them. You don't need to pay 1 million immortal crystals even if you kill them. You just need to apply for a deathmatch contract at the exchange counter and you can bet your life to win. I got it. Just go away. Nine Nether Swordmeister waved his hand. The golden immortal old man let out a faint smile and turned to Tan Xiu. Then he left with more than a dozen guards. Do you know him, Great Tang Lilbro? Asked Nine Nether Swordmeister. We talked about buying 20 golden immortal gladiators before. Tan Xiu lightly smiled and said, We met once. Why do you want to buy so many golden immortal gladiators? Asked Nine Nether Swordmeister with a smile. Do you want them to be your guards? Tan Xiu chuckled and said, Don't tell me you don't think that spending money to buy a group of thugs to accompany you will save you a lot of trouble in the future? I'm too poor, else I would have bought tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of golden immortal gladiators and formed a golden immortal legion. If I don't like it, I can flatten it with a wave of my arm or a flick of my finger. If I don't like it, I can directly crush them with my golden immortal subordinates. Cough, cough, cough. Nine Nether Swordmeister nearly choked to death. His face flushed red and was covered with a strange expression. After a while, he gave a thumbs up to Tan Xiu and praised, Great Tang Lilbro, you're really a marvel. You can even come up with such a grand idea in your mind. This big brother admires you. Chapter 1275. From the beginning to the end, Nine Nether Swordmeister didn't ask about Tan Xiu's true identity. As the saying goes, the friendship between gentlemen is as indifferent as water. After all, this was the first time they met, so it was natural that they wouldn't reveal anything to each other. Soon after, a graceful woman in a black combat robe walked into the convict arena's cage. She looked around and said in a deep voice, The following deathmatch gladiators will definitely make everyone's blood boil. You should all know their names, and you should also know their accomplishments. Well then, please welcome Battle Peng and Vasif. As her voice faded away, everyone's eyes were focused on the entrance of the convict cage. When the two figures appeared, the tens of thousands of gamblers in the spectator seats of the convict cage stood up and shouted the names of the people they had placed their bets on. Early stage Golden Immortal, Battle Peng. Mid-stage Golden Immortal, Vasif. A smile appeared on Nine Nether Swordmeister's face as he turned to look at Tan Xiu and said, An early stage Golden Immortal and a mid-stage Golden Immortal. Battle Peng, 48 wins out of 49 fights. The only time he lost was when he was seriously injured and unable to fight again. His opponent was already dying and eventually gave up on killing him. Vasif, 62 wins out of 62 fights and brutally killed his opponent every time. He's one of the most ruthless golden immortals in the convict arena and also the one who has lived the longest here. Great Tang Lilbro, who do you think will win in the end? Tang Xiu silently recalled the combat records of the two men, as well as their specific information. After a quarter of an hour, he slowly said, Battle Peng. Nine Nether Swordmeister shook his head and smilingly said, I used to do the opposite. The more I thought someone couldn't win, the more I bet on them. Every time the situation was reversed, I felt very happy. How about we make a bet this time? It's not too big of a bet, though. Tan Xiu smiled and asked, What kind of bet do you want to make, Nine Nether Brother? A glint flashed in Nine Nether Swordmeister's eyes as he said, If you win, I'll teach you my self-created 9 Nether 18 swords. If you lose, you just have to give me the 1,000,000 crystal essences that Madame Empyrean Pole gave you. How about it? Tan Xiu shook his head and said, Elder Brother 9 Nether has a terrifying cultivation base, and the self-created 9 Nether 18 swords is probably an extremely powerful divine ability in the immortal world. Unfortunately, I don't lack magical powers or spells. Let's bet 1,000,000 crystal essences. At least for the two of us, it's fair. What a fair word. Nine Nether Swordmeister cast a meaningful look at Tan Xiu and increasingly felt that his judgment was correct. This person in front of him was definitely a powerful character in the past. Laughing heartily, he continued, Then 1,000,000 crystal essences it is. We can afford this small amount of money. Little money? Little money my ass. Tan Xiu secretly cursed in his heart. 1,000,000 crystal essences was equivalent to 100 million immortal crystals, which was a huge sum for him now. Just the cultivation resources alone would probably be enough for all the members of the Great Tang Empire to use for hundreds of years. Inside the convict's cage, Battlepeng showed neither joy nor sorrow as he calmly looked at the ferocious Vasuf opposite him. Every time he entered the prison cage to fight, his goal was not to kill his enemies, but to survive. The dark days of the convict arena seemed to be endless slaughter. He understood that only by winning could he survive. In his heart, there was still a glimmer of hope. This hope was to gain the recognition of a certain great figure through his glorious achievements, so that he could be bought away from this place. Even if he had to follow that person in the future and kill endlessly, it was still better than staying here forever. It was far, far better. The battle begins. Along with the shout of the graceful woman, Vasuf took out a war blade and rushed towards Battlepeng, who was 100 meters away. The blade light had already arrived in front of Battlepeng. Spatial barrier. In an instant, Battlepeng sent out thousands of hand seals. Layer after layer of light screens appeared before him. Even though the sabers kept shattering the barrier, when the countless saber shadows were still half a meter away from Battlepeng, they were all blocked. A silver spear suddenly appeared in Battlepeng's hand out of the blue. The spear's shadow burned with raging flames and countless golden runes shrouded it as he thrust it toward the saber shadows in front. Boom! Both of them retreated at the same time, each retreating several kilometers away before they barely managed to stabilize their bodies. A bloodthirsty glint flashed in Vasuf's eyes. He licked his chapped lips and grinned. Battlepeng, I've watched 24 of your fights and studied all your secret arts and divine abilities. If your cultivation had advanced to the next level and reached the mid-level of Golden Immortal, you might have been able to contend with me. But with your current strength, you can only be a stepping stone for me to live longer. Today, I'll use your blood to add to Vasuf's outstanding achievements. Having said that, a black lacquer chain that was 100 meters long and shrouded in black mist appeared inside his body. As he rushed toward Battlepeng again, he fiercely slashed his war blade, whereas the chain fluttered around the blade's shadows. The black mist was like a snake hissing and flicking its tongue, carrying the aura of death. Jumping levels to kill people is a common thing in the immortal world. Relying on your high cultivation, you dare to be so arrogant? You're simply courting death. You want to die? I'll fulfill your wish. A cold glint flashed in Battlepeng's eyes. He waved his arms and spear shadows were like sharp arrows that blotted out the sky as they shot toward the sprinting Vasuf. However, it was very difficult for the sharp arrows to bend, but the spear shadows were like silver ribbons that overlapped and constantly changed their trajectories. Spear weaves lightning. Battlepeng stepped on the spear shadows and raging flames erupted all over his body. He looked like an incarnation of a flaming god of war. He kept casting seals and unleashing swift and fierce killing moves. Boom! The convict prison's cage was surrounded by an array formation set up by a powerful supernatural being. Hence, the explosive power of the two people inside had no effect on the outside. The flames crisscrossed and the black mist lingered. The two of them kept casting various divine abilities and means. Amidst the intense consumption, Vasuf gradually gained the upper hand. However, he only gained the upper hand. The wounds on his body kept increasing and he even fell into a crisis several times. I'll take your life while you're down. As time went by, Vasuf, who had been fighting for several hours, suddenly flew up and flew toward Battlepeng along with the blade light. In nearly the blink of an eye, the blade-like black battle robe suddenly bulged up and Vasuf appeared in front of Battlepeng the next moment. Die! Another blade instantly swept across Battlepeng's neck. Space condensation. Battlepeng seemed to have expected Vasuf to use this move. He kept casting seals with both hands. The moment the blade swept across his neck, his 10 fingers turned into claws. The seemingly careless slash caused the space in front of his throat to distort. Immediately afterward, the distorted space expanded infinitely, causing Vasuf's body to tremble and instantly retreat backward. Too late. Battlepeng grinned fiendishly. A surge of immortal force turned into a spear shadow and pierced Vasuf's chest. Vasuf revealed an incredulous expression as Battlepeng's figure gradually turned illusory. Behind Vasuf, a short sword appeared out of thin air in Battlepeng's hand and pierced deep into his back. The violent immortal force destroyed Vasif's heart core and destroyed his internal organs. Immediately after, a long spear appeared out of thin air and directly whipped Vasif away. Then let's die together. Vasif's stature suddenly skyrocketed, and a flickering golden phantom emerged from his body. Although his body was sent flying backward, the golden phantom was as fast as lightning. It instantly turned into a long blade and fiercely chopped down on Battlepeng's head. Puff! The moment Battlepeng held the short sword in a reverse grip and blocked in front of his forehead, the long blade slashed the short sword. As the short sword broke, it also slashed across Battlepeng's head and cut off his hand that was holding the short sword. Boom! The long saber exploded with a loud bang, sending Battlepeng's body flying back several dozen kilometers before crashing heavily onto the ground. Whoosh! A figure flickered and instantly appeared in front of Battlepeng. A pink mist sprayed out from the person's hand and converged on Battlepeng's broken wrist that was spraying blood. The broken hand was then wrapped by a golden thread and quickly reattached to Battlepeng. This immortal kernel mist can restore your broken wrist in 3 days. Remember, you're not allowed to fight anyone for 3 days. The graceful woman glanced at Vasif's broken body and then floated away. Battlepeng wriggled his body and crawled up from the ground with great difficulty. His eyes were filled with indifference towards life. After crawling up, he gently moved his arms. Then, without so much as a glance at the audience outside, he slowly disappeared through the door of the prison cell amidst countless cheers and curses. In the auditorium, a smile hung on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth. He turned to look at Nine Nether Swordmeister, who was shaking his head with a forced smile, and said, "It seems I won this bet." Nine Nether Swordmeister nodded and wiped his fat cheek with his palm. Then he curiously asked, "How did you judge that Battlepeng was the final winner?" "I found some clues from his information," said Tan Xiu. "It's written that he's proficient in spatial techniques, but he has never used any spatial manipulation techniques in his past battles. You may not understand, but I'll be frank with you. I bet that he has the ability to manipulate space. I also believe that every expert who can live to the golden immortal stage has his own trump card." "Then I don't get it. Why didn't he use his spatial ability when he was almost killed by the enemy?" Nine Nether Swordmeister frowned. "That's why he lost the battle." Tan Xiu narrowed his eyes and thoughtfully said, "He should be hiding his strength if my guess is correct. It's very likely that he's not an early-stage golden immortal." "You said he's not an early-stage golden immortal?" Nine Nether Swordmeister was surprised. "How is that possible?" Chapter 1276. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and asked, "What's your cultivation level now, Nine Nether Brother?" Nine Nether Swordmeister stared blankly and immediately pondered for a while. Then he slowly replied, "I've been stuck at the mid-stage of Golden Immortal for more than 2,000 years and have never been able to break through to the late stage of Golden Immortal." "Why do you ask?" Tan Xiu didn't answer his question but asked another question instead. "If you know the heaven shrouding art, what kind of cultivation level would you usually reveal to others?" "The heaven shrouding art?" Nine Nether Swordmeister was surprised. "You mean Battlepeng is proficient in the heaven shrouding art? You must know that the heaven shrouding art is a secret art unique to Lightning Seigneur, and it's also known that Battlepeng isn't one of his 4 disciples. Concealing one's cultivation level is something anyone can do, but to evade detection without putting up the slightest resistance, I'm afraid only the Lightning Seigneur and his 4 disciples can do that, right?" "You just used a phrase that I think is very good." Tan Xiu shook his head. "It's known to all. But were there no exceptions besides the well-known ones? There are innumerable powerhouses in the entire immortal world, and there are even more almighty beings. Maybe there are some heaven-defying peerless geniuses who can research the heaven-shrouding art that's almost on par with Lightning Seigneur?" Nine Nether Swordmeister nodded solemnly and said, "What you said makes sense. It seems I've underestimated the almighty beings in the immortal world." Having said that, with a bit of regret on his face, he sighed faintly and said, "Those almighty beings who liked stirring up trouble the most have all disappeared. Some are dead, while others are hiding from the world. I'm afraid it's hard to see them stirring up chaos in the immortal world and forcing countless powerhouses to take action. Else, the means of those almighty beings will continue to spread out and be known by us. Tan Xiu shook his head without a word and sighed inwardly. He used to be. Nine Nether Swordmeister said that he was the kind of person who liked stirring up trouble. Before he met Xue Qingqing, he had stirred up chaos in the immortal world countless times. In fact, after he became a supreme stage great divine ability practitioner, he had caused countless high-level battles. Amongst them, there were no less than 10 exalted realm experts that he'd personally killed, and there were even over 10,000 perfected golden immortals amongst them. He had become a supreme being by wading through rivers of blood and stepping on mountains of corpses to reach the top. Looking at Nine Nether Swordmeister's complicated expression, Tan Xiu slowly said, "The immortal world won't be peaceful for a long time. As batches of weaklings became strong, there would naturally be some people who would stand out and cause chaos. Some time ago, I heard of a person who seems to be very happy right now. Who is it?" Nine Nether Swordmeister was surprised. Tan Xiu said, "100 Dan Immortal Lord." Nine Nether Swordmeister furrowed his brows and a disdainful look flashed in his eyes as he lightly said, "He's indeed causing quite a ruckus recently. It's quite rare for a perfected golden immortal to be able to kill 4 experts of the same level. Great Tang Lilbro doesn't seem to be very well informed. Just 3 years ago, that brat was hunted down for half a year and nearly died countless times. If it weren't for his senior and junior brothers coming out to rescue him, and if it weren't for his master, Great Emperor Danqing, coming out of seclusion and laying out the 9-9 Annihilation Immortal Array to trap the other party inside and refine him to death, I'm afraid he wouldn't have been able to create any waves." Killing intent surged inside Tan Xiu's heart, but he maintained his composure on the surface and said, "Great Emperor Danqing? That supremacy stage powerhouse in the immortal world? To think that he would actually refine his enemies to death just for his disciple?" Nine Nether Swordmeister obviously didn't want to talk about Great Emperor Danqing and lightly said, "An in-name disciple is different from a personal disciple. If an in-name disciple dies, then so be it. But if a personal disciple is killed by someone else, it's like slapping the faces of those big shots. It would be strange if they didn't act." Back then, when a personal disciple of Star Cultivation Great Emperor was killed, he crossed hundreds of immortal domains and personally massacred the other party's entire sect, causing an uproar in most of the immortal world. That kind of character is truly worthy of respect. Star Cultivation Great Emperor? The killing intent in Tan Xiu's heart was replaced by complex emotions. It was such a familiar name, and no one in the entire immortal world was more familiar with it than him. It was because he was the supremacy of the immortal world. Suddenly, Tan Xiu's expression shifted and he asked, "Brother Nine Nether, I heard you talk about this Star Cultivation Great Emperor. I've heard of his legend. He seems to be a very powerful supremacy of the immortal world. How come I haven't heard of his name in the past hundreds of years?" "He failed to cross the divinity tribulation and died." Nine Nether Swordmeister shook his head and sighed. "He actually failed to cross the divinity tribulation?" Tan Xiu pretended to be shocked and asked, "How is that possible? I heard that he's a true super powerhouse in the entire immortal world. Even many supremacy stage powerhouses are not his match. I never thought that he would fail to cross the divinity tribulation." Nine Nether Swordmeister sighed. "The divinity tribulation." Tan Xiu was silent for a while and then casually said, "I really didn't expect that Star Cultivation Great Emperor would die. It seems that the path of immortal cultivation is really full of dangers." "That's right. I heard that Star Cultivation Great Emperor was the strongest person in the Rosefinch Holy Sect. He died and provoked so many enemies, so I'm afraid that he'll make things difficult for the Rosefinch Holy Sect, no?" Nine Nether Swordmeister seemed to recall something and a contemptuous look appeared in his eyes. He lightly said, "The Rosefinch Holy Sect's life is indeed not that good nowadays. Speaking of which, Star Cultivation Great Emperor is really blind to have made friends with 2 people who are worse than pigs and dogs. After he failed to cross the divinity tribulation, his 2 friends even threatened that Star Cultivation Great Emperor had humiliated them. The two of them joined forces and found many supremes and perfected golden immortals who once had grievances with Star Cultivation Great Emperor to kill the Rosefinch Holy Sect. Nearly half of the once glorious disciples of the Rosefinch Holy Sect were killed, and the rest are now holed up in the clan land of the Rosefinch Holy Sect, relying on the two supremacy stage powerhouses of the sect as well as the sect's protective array to survive. There's such a thing? Tan Xiu was surprised. Could it be that the former disciples of Star Cultivation Great Emperor, his former subordinates, and even his other friends just tolerate others bullying the Rosefinch Holy Sect? Monkeys scatter when the tree falls, and everyone pushes the wall when it's down. 9 Nether Swordmeister sighed. These words were said by a profound immortal young man, and all the immortals in the entire immortal world felt that it was very reasonable. It's not an exaggeration to say that it's not an exaggeration. Of course, it can't be generalized. Star Cultivation Great Emperor once had countless disciples and countless powerhouses who were indebted to him. Those powerhouses who knew how to repay kindness bravely stepped forward and participated in the battle that lasted for hundreds of years. Millions of people died in the battle, and the rest also retreated after the chaos. Although they retreated, they still declared that if those enemies dare to provoke the Rosefinch Holy Sect again, they won't hesitate to attack them. Having said that, 9 Nether Swordmeisters seemed unwilling to talk about this heavy topic anymore. He took out 1,000,000 crystal essences from his interspatial ring and gave them to Tan Xiu, saying, "You won this." Despite his complicated feelings, Tang Xiu still let out a smile and accepted the 1,000,000 crystal essences. Then, he said, "Then this little brother will respectfully accept these crystal essences. You're a perfected golden immortal, Brother 9 Nether. I can tell from your words and actions that you seem to respect Star Cultivation Great Emperor very much. Could it be that you also participated in the Rosefinch Holy Sect's crisis?" "Of course. Supreme Star Soul once did me a great favor, so how could I stand idly by when the Rosefinch Holy Sect was in trouble? Even that muddle-headed Empyrean Pole Madam also participated in it," sighed 9 Nether Swordmeister. "Madame Empyrean Pole Madam also participated in it?" Tan Xiu was surprised. "Does she also have a friendship with someone from the Rosefinch Holy Sect?" "She acted on behalf of the Empyrean Pole Oldman." 9 Nether Swordmeister shook his head. "She had a deep friendship with Star Cultivation Great Emperor back then." Suddenly, 9 Nether Swordmeister stared at Tan Xiu and changed the topic. "Great Tang Lil Bro, you seem to be very concerned about Star Cultivation Great Emperor and the Rosefinch Holy Sect, no? Did you also?" No. Tan Xiu let out a hollow laugh and said, "How could a nobody like me have any relationship with those big shots? I'm just curious about the chaos that happened in the past. However, it would be great if I could have a relationship with them. At least I can follow Star Cultivation Great Emperor. After all, he's a super powerhouse who's very protective of his people. With his protection, I can really walk unhindered in the immortal world." "Ha!" 9 Nether Swordmeister burst into laughter. Even the two coquettish women on his other side couldn't help but laugh again and again. Tan Xiu let out a hollow laugh a few times and said, "Even if I don't know Star Cultivation Great Emperor, it's still my blessing to get to know you, Brother 9 Nether. If anyone dares to bully me in the future, I'll use your name, brother. When the time comes, all my enemies who are hostile to me will definitely be scared shitless and flee after hearing your name." 9 Nether Swordmeister rolled his eyes. He got up and smilingly said, "I have a lot of enemies. You can use my name if you're not afraid of further enmity. Alright, I've wasted a lot of time coming here today, so I'll go back first. May I know where Great Tang Lil Bro lives? I'll inform you later when I'm gambling with my enemies." Tan Xiu thought for a while and then said, "Then come to the Stargazing Pavilion to find me." 9 Nether Swordmeister nodded and gave Tan Xiu a message token. Then he hugged the two coquettish women and walked outside. After walking for a kilometer, he sent a voice transmission to Xiong Xiu. "You can choose 20 golden immortal gladiators yourself. I'll pay the immortal crystals to the convict arena, so you don't need to worry about it." "Thank you, Brother 9 Nether." Tan Xiao cupped his fists toward 9 nether swordmeisters' back and replied with a voice transmission. His gratitude was only a small part of the Golden Immortal's gift. What he really thanked him for was his help to the Rosefinch Holy Sect. Chapter 1277. The amorous chief manager of the convict arena, led by the attendant Xiaoyu, returned to Tan Xiao and Gu Yan. When her beautiful eyes glanced at Tan Xiao, she smiled and said, "You have a good eye, fellow immortal. You won the first round. Congratulations." "I'm just playing around." Tan Xiao smiled indifferently. The attendant Xiaoyu respectfully handed the interspatial ring to Tan Xiao and said, "These are the immortal crystals you asked me to exchange for you. There are 2 million immortal crystals and 2 million immortal crystals you won, for a total of 4 million immortal crystals." Tan Xiao casually took out 10 immortal crystals and threw them to Xiaoyu, saying, "This is your reward. There's nothing else for you to do now, so go and do something else." The attendant Xiaoyu hurriedly looked at the beautiful woman. The beautiful woman smiled lightly and said, "Just take it since it's a reward from an honored guest. Great Tang immortal friend, 9 nether swordmeister just paid 150 million immortal crystals for you. Are you going to pick 20 late-stage golden immortal gladiators now?" "What's the price of early-stage golden immortal gladiators?" asked Tan Xiao. 4 million immortal crystals," answered the beautiful woman with a smile. Tan Xiao directly took out 4 million immortal crystals and gave them to her, saying indifferently, "Since Battle Ping made me win 2 million immortal crystals, then I'll buy him as well." After a long while, Tan Xiao took the life tokens of the 21 golden immortals and left the convict arena with them. The background of these 21 golden immortals was recorded in the convict arena's information. Unless someone was hiding their identity, they were not from hostile forces. At this moment, the 21 golden immortals, including Battle Peng, all looked at Tan Xiao with grateful eyes. Although they found out that the person who paid such a high price to buy them was just an ordinary immortal who hadn't even reached the Earth Immortal stage, the fact that he could save them from such a perverted place like the convict arena was undoubtedly like giving them a second life. At the stargazing pavilion, the old golden immortal chief manager was sitting in the accountant's room, silently calculating some things. After a long while, as his orders were passed out, the entire stargazing pavilion's protective array was ready to be opened at any time. On the surface, the guards of the stargazing pavilion were still the same as before, but behind the scenes, a large number of experts of the stargazing pavilion were hidden in the dark. Once there was a crisis, those experts would immediately appear. "Little brat." After issuing the order, the golden immortal old man cursed with a smile. Thinking about the tens of millions of immortal crystals that seemed to have gone down the drain, he felt unhappy. "My lord." A figure suddenly appeared in front of the old golden immortal. "What is it?" The golden immortal old man raised his glass cup and drank a mouthful of tea. The man respectfully said, "That great Tang who had a free meal in our stargazing pavilion and caused us a lot of losses has returned. Moreover, he's being led by an attendant to the tower in the middle." The golden immortal old man's face turned purple when he heard that. As he coughed violently, anger flashed across his eyes. He slapped the table and angrily shouted, "Go! Drive that freeloading brat away. Does he think our stargazing pavilion is a charity?" "Understood." The man nodded and turned to leave. The golden immortal old man gasped for breath. Before the man left, he called out again, "Forget it. You don't need to care about this matter. I'll go see him myself." The man wore a strange expression, but he still respectfully complied and quickly left. The golden immortal old man rubbed his brows and a wry smile appeared on his old face. He could have sent someone to drive him away if it were any other guest. But when he recalled that the brat was someone his master Empyrean Pole Medum admired, he could only grit his teeth and swallow it. Even if he was unwilling, he couldn't drive him away. So, the golden immortal old man came to the middle tower. When he reached the 88th floor, he walked straight to a door. When he opened the door, he saw a long table with more than 20 men and women in ragged clothes sitting on both sides. He immediately frowned. He was fuming with anger. Looking at the clothes of these 21 men and women, he couldn't wait to rush to Tan Xiu and slap him a few times. Did they really think this stargazing pavilion was a charity? Did they even bring beggars here? However, just as he was cursing in his heart, his expression suddenly froze. This was because at that moment, the 21 men and women in ragged clothes all turned their heads to look at him. In that instant, the aura that erupted from their bodies caused him to shiver uncontrollably. 21. Golden Immortals? And almost all of them were late-stage Golden Immortals? The Golden Immortal old man dared to swear to heaven that among the 200,000 people Tan Xiu called out from the heavenly abode artifact last time, none of them were Golden Immortals, nor these 21 people. Upon seeing the Golden Immortal old man's arrival, Tan Xiu immediately smiled and got up to greet him. "We're here to disturb you again, Chief Steward. I'm going to treat these 21 new subordinates of mine to a meal today. Send all the good wine and dishes you have here. Don't worry, I won't ask your stargazing pavilion to treat me again. I'll pay for it myself." The Golden Immortal old man forced a smile and sighed. "Great Tang Immortal friend, you're really... forget it. Since there are only 20 of you, this meal is free. However, we're just a small business, and this is the last time we'll be doing this. Besides, we can only provide 23 of you with delicious food." "We'll do as you say, Senior," said Tan Xiu with a smile. The Golden Immortal old man shook his head helplessly and turned to leave. Tang Xiu sat back on the chair and looked at the smiling Guyan, who had been silent all this time. Then, he glanced at his 21 Golden Immortal subordinates and said in a deep voice, "I bought all of you from the convict arena and gave you a second life. I don't care what your identity was before, nor do I care what experiences you had. From today onwards, all of you will treat your past selves as dead. My name is Great Tang Heavenly Emperor, and you can just call me Master. Your only task from today onward is to protect my safety and obey my orders. Of course, I won't be too harsh on you. As long as you work for me loyally, I'll provide you with a lot of cultivation resources and treat you as my trusted subordinates. I don't have too many rules here, but you can't kill people without my order." Having said that, Tan Xiu took out a cigarette from his interspatial ring, lit it up and took a few puffs. Then, under the watchful eyes of the 21 people, he said again, "Of course, I'll also give you a chance. If you work for me loyally, I'll give you your freedom after 5,000 years. At that time, you can choose to stay by my side or choose to leave. I'll respect all of you." "What?" The 21 Golden Immortals looked at each other in dismay with disbelief in their eyes. Never in their wildest dreams did they expect that the person who bought them would actually give them such a promise. 5,000 years. If they could get a steady stream of cultivation resources, it wouldn't be a problem for them to have a breakthrough in their cultivation with their aptitude. At that time, as long as they broke through to the perfected Golden Immortal stage, they could live long enough to regain their freedom. "Thank you, Master." The 21 men and women stood up one after another and then knelt on one knee toward Tan Xiu and respectfully thanked him. Tan Xiu nodded with satisfaction and motioned them to sit down again. Then, he said, "In order to welcome all of you, today's feast is on me. Also, I'll give you some things." Having said that, Tan Xiu gently spread his hand and 21 interspatial rings suddenly appeared in front of them. Tan Xiu said, "There are 1 million immortal crystals in each interspatial ring, as well as 2 sets of combat robes and immortal weapons for you. In addition, there are some medicinal pills with various effects. These are my greeting gifts for you." "Thank you, Master." The 21 men stood up again and knelt on one knee. If most of them were excited before, then they were grateful now. It was because they found that the Master in front of them didn't seem to be a vicious person who would easily destroy their lives. Tan Xiu nodded and said, "From today onwards, all of you will be under Battle Peng's command. Although his cultivation is not as good as yours, I'm the most familiar with him." Battle Peng hurriedly said, "This subordinate will obey Master's orders and work for you wholeheartedly." Tan Xiu raised his hand and a stream of qi lifted him up. He nodded and said, "I need to tell you something in advance. I'm the Emperor of the Great Tang Empire. You may not know the Great Tang Empire now, and you may not even have heard of this name. But in the future, you will also be a part of the great Tang Empire. The 21 men replied respectfully. This meal. Everyone wolfed down the food with grease dripping from their mouths. After becoming the deathmatch gladiators of the convict arena, they had almost never eaten anything. Even if they did eat something, it was only after each victory and some spirit fruits to enjoy. While eating, the 4 female golden immortals almost had tears in their eyes. It was the feeling of surviving a disaster. It suddenly made them feel so blessed. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, Tan Xiu booked 12 guest rooms in the stargazing pavilion. Every 2 golden immortals could use 1 room, while Battle Peng, who was their commander, had his own room. Yen, do you want me to give you a separate room? Tan Xiu looked at the smiling Gu Yen, with a headache. Even though the door to the room was right in front of him, he had a feeling of hesitation. Gu Yen, didn't speak. Instead, she grabbed Tan Xiu's wrist and pulled him into the room. After closing the door directly from the inside, she pulled him to the chair inside and pressed his shoulder to make him sit on the chair. Gu Yen, took a deep breath and said seriously, Master, I'll always use this title. But I'm already the princess of the great Tang Empire, which means I'm your woman. I know it's hard for you to accept it in a short time, but I can wait as long as you don't reject me. Tan Xiu smiled bitterly. Why would I reject you? It's just that. Gu Yen shook her head and said, Let's leave everything to time, Master. Unless I die, I'll always be your woman. The 3rd chapter is over. Seeking monthly votes for support. Chapter 1278. Tan Xiu couldn't get over the hurdle in his heart. Looking at Gu Yen's serious expression, he had no other choice but to smile bitterly. It wasn't that he couldn't reject her directly, but he couldn't hurt Gu Yen's heart. Perhaps Gu Yen was right. Leave everything to time. Tan Xiu sighed inwardly. He patted her shoulder and said, Let's stay here and cultivate in peace for the next few days. 8 months was not a long time. It passed in the blink of an eye. Also, we now have a lot of cultivation resources, so we don't have to worry about the cultivation of all the members of the great Tang Empire. Gu Yen put away her romantic feelings and said, Master, I also think it's a good thing for us to stay here for a while. Almost all the members of the great Tang Empire were humans from Earth. Although we have taught them a lot of common knowledge about the immortal world, they have never truly experienced the atmosphere and environment of the immortal world. I think that in the next 8 months, we should let them leave the heavenly abode fairy artifact in batches and train in the vicinity. Tan Xiu's eyes lit up. He nodded and said with a smile, I can't believe I didn't think of such a good idea. I'm really a fool for a lifetime. You're right. Ever since they followed us to the immortal world, they've only been cultivating on that barren planet for a year and a half. Also, they had a meal here the last time. They know too little about the situation in the immortal world. Gu Yen said, Yes. A jade that is not cut and polished will not be of use. People who do not learn will never know. In the future, the entire great Tang Empire would have to live and work hard in the immortal world. If they didn't even understand the most basic common sense, they would suffer greatly in the future. The way I see it, even if they are loyal to the great Tang Empire and you, they are still loyal to you. However, I hope that all the members of the great Tang Empire are the elites of the elites and the powerhouses of the powerhouses. Tan Xiu nodded slightly and communicated with the heavenly abode artifact. Soon after, Tang Oolong appeared in front of Tan Xiu. Looking at his curious expression, Tan Xiu faintly smiled and said, From today onwards, you'll follow me to learn and cultivate. In the next 8 months, the members of the great Tang Empire will come out of the heavenly abode artifact in batches to train within a radius of 1,000,000 miles. Tang Oolong was pleasantly surprised. That's great. All the members of the great Tang Empire are now hoping to come out of the heavenly abode artifact and see the real immortal world. Master, how about I arrange for them? Tan Xiu smiled and said, Then you need to tell me first, how are you going to arrange for them? Tang Oolong pondered for a few minutes and said, You just said that we'll stay here for 8 months, Master. To have them all outside for 8 months would be contrary to your wishes. I suggest 1 batch every 2 months, with each batch having 60,000 members. Then, a commander-in-chief will be selected from these 60,000 people, followed by a deputy commander-in-chief for every 10,000 people. Finally, after layers of separation, every member over the age of 30 will be able to take care of 6 children of the 4 major legions. Tan Xiu nodded with satisfaction and said, "Not bad. It's really not easy for you to think of so many things in such a short time. Then, we'll make some adjustments and decisions based on your proposal. We must ensure the safety of the Great Tang Empire's members as much as possible. Then we'll start tomorrow." "There's another issue, Master," Tang Along quickly asked. "Although every member has received immortal stones and immortal crystals before, the amount is still not much. Everyone wants to absorb and refine them to increase their cultivation. So, can you ask the Ministry of Finance to give us some more immortal stones?" Tan Xiu thought for a while and said, "Give each of them 100 immortal crystals. As for how to use them, let them decide." A happy look appeared on Tang Along's face. He nodded repeatedly and directly returned to the Heavenly Abode artifact to make arrangements. Tan Xiu called Gu Xiaoxue out of the Heavenly Abode artifact and directly gave her the 1 million crystal essences he won from 9 Nether Swordmeister. These crystal essences would not be used for the time being. After all, it would be a waste to use them before reaching the immortal stage. However, Tan Xiu also took out 100,000 crystal essences for the 35,680 monster immortals to use for the time being. In the blink of an eye, 5 months had passed and only 3 months were left before 9 Nether Swordmeisters bet with the others in the convict arena. In the past 5 months, a total of 2 batches of 120,000 members of the Great Tang Empire had experienced the outside world and had made good progress both in terms of knowledge and strength. The 3rd batch of members was currently moving freely outside. Of course, the plan drawn up by Tang Ong was much more detailed than what he had said before. Therefore, although the members of the Great Tang Empire were training outside, they didn't cause any big trouble. There were some small troubles, but they were easily solved. In addition, the Intelligence Division, which was personally controlled by Tan Xiu, left directly with a sum of immortal crystals after receiving Tan Xiu's order. They were not in the scope of the training, but Tan Xiu ordered Jin Shi and Yi Shi-san to arrive at the Immortal Lyceum's territory within 3 years no matter what methods they used. The Intelligence Division didn't have many members, only 3,000 in total, and all of them were powerful characters who were good at gathering intelligence. Although these 3,000 people were under the control of Jin Shi and Yi Shi-san, Tan Xiu still assigned 2 late-stage golden immortals to protect them. There was also the Assassination Division. Tang and led Feng Yang and Xue Gui, as well as 500 experts proficient in assassination from the Assassination Division. Under the protection of 2 late-stage golden immortals, they would directly experience 8 months of training. What made Tan Xiu at a loss whether to laugh or cry was Gu Xiaoxue and his aunt, Tang Min. The 2 of them were in charge of the Finance Division. In just 5 months, they learned all kinds of common knowledge in the immortal world and used their business acumen to earn more than 2 million immortal crystals with 500,000 immortal crystals as their capital. This kind of ability, Tan Xiu was truly amazed. Stargazing Pavilion. Tan Xiu was sitting cross-legged on a futon with a demon stone in each hand. He quickly absorbed and refined them to enhance his strength bit by bit. Finally, when he completely absorbed and refined the last 2 demon stones he had, a wry smile appeared on his handsome face. The heavenly art of cosmic genesis was a cultivation technique that even demon gods regarded as a treasure. The effect of absorbing immortal force wasn't that great. At most, it could only make the primal chaos force in his body more and more powerful. But what he needed the most was his body. With this heaven-defying fiend celestial body, he could kill ordinary immortals with the pure strength of his body, even without cultivation. He was confident that he could even fight an earthly immortal. Yen. Tan Xiu looked at Gu Yen, who was sitting cross-legged on the opposite side. Gu Yen opened her eyes and asked, "What's the matter, master?" "I'm going to take Tang Along out for a stroll and buy some things on the way," said Tan Xiu. "You can stay here and cultivate. If I don't come back in a month, you can send the 4th batch of members out to gain experience after the 3rd batch returns." Gu Yen thought for a while and said, No problem. I'll take care of the heavenly abode artifact first. However, you need to take all 17 golden immortals with you, Master. Otherwise, I'll be worried about your safety. You don't need to be so nervous. Tan Xiu shook his head and smilingly said, Hessian Castle may be very large, but we won't go too far. Besides, 9 Netherswordmeister's residence isn't far from here. I'll contact him immediately if I have no other choice. I'm sure he'll be able to arrive in time. Gu Yenner said, Master, it's better if you bring more people. I'll feel more at ease. I'll take Battle Peng and 6 late-stage golden immortals with me, said Tan Xiu. All right. Gu Yenner nodded reluctantly. She still believed in those golden immortals she bought from the convict arena. After all, those who could survive in a place like the convict arena were definitely formidable characters who had gone through hundreds of battles. Suddenly, Tan Xiu's expression slightly changed. He instantly stretched out his hand and Star Devourer insect quickly flew out of his body. At this moment, Tan Xiu heard the insect's voice. Immortal stones, immortal crystals, give me as many as you have. Hurry up. Tan Xiu's expression slightly changed. After handing the heavenly abode artifact to Gu Yenner, he instantly entered the artifact with Star Devourer insect. When the two of them came to an empty area, he quickly took out tens of thousands of immortal crystals from his interspatial ring and asked in a deep voice, Are you going to break through? Star Devourer insect only replied one sentence before it unleashed a terrifying devouring force and continuously swallowed tens of thousands of immortal crystals. Immediately after, Star Devourer insect's body began to expand. From the size of a fingernail, it expanded to a height of more than 10 meters in just half a minute. Its huge body was just like a small hill. A surging aura emanated from its body. The aura was so huge that even Tan Xiu's expression slightly changed. Tan Xiu took a deep breath and took out millions of immortal crystals from his interspatial ring. He threw them to Star Devourer insect and shouted, Devour as much as you can. I'll provide as much as you can. Remember, strive to break through directly and become as strong as possible. Yes. Star Devourer insect was excited. With Tan Xiu's assurance, its eruption of devouring force became stronger and stronger. The millions of immortal crystals were continuously swallowed into its belly. Immediately after, its physique skyrocketed again. After 8 days, Star Devourer insect's body stopped expanding and its aura stabilized at a high level. The moment it raised its head to the sky and roared, Tan Xiu immediately punched it. Shut up. Do you want to kill everyone in this heavenly abode artifact? Shouted Tan Xiu angrily. Star Devourer insect's aura quickly converged and its body quickly shrunk. In a moment, it shrunk to the size of a fist and floated in front of Tan Xiu, saying, I'm a bit excited that my power skyrocketed. But I feel that I'm really powerful now, at least stronger than you. Tan Xiu rolled his eyes and snappily said, You're now comparable to a golden immortal, so of course you're stronger than me. But you've also devoured too many of my immortal crystals. Chapter 1279. Star Devourer insect's body began to transform. In just a short while, it turned into a miniature creature with a hard shell on its back but a human head and 4 limbs. It laughed and said excitedly, So I'm comparable to a golden immortal now. That's great. Don't worry. I'll repay you 1,000,000 times in the future after I swallow your immortal crystals. Having said that, it spun around lightly and asked with a grin, How is it? Is it cool? Is it cool? Is it flashy? Well, the language of humans on Earth is really interesting. I miss the days when I was with you on Earth. Tan Xiu looked at it with a faint smile and said, How about I send you back to Earth? No need. Star Devourer insect laughed dryly. Although there are many interesting things on Earth, I still prefer this place. Heavens. Delicacies, immortal crystals, rich immortal qi, and all kinds of fascinating mineral resources. Most importantly, my most favorite master is here. Bootlicka. Tan Xiu couldn't help but roll his eyes. Suddenly, he saw the flattering expression on its face and suddenly had a bad premonition. He looked at it vigilantly and asked, I've already provided you with a lot of immortal crystals. What else do you want? China's culture is broad and profound. You know this. There's a saying in it, don't be greedy and stop before going too far. Star Devourer Insect said, Master, you humans need to eat, right? Tan Xiu said, you won't need to eat after your cultivation becomes stronger. Star Devourer Insect said with a bit of grievance, but I'm still young. Tan Xiu really lost to it. How could a being comparable to a golden immortal tell him that he was still young? This bastard, who is many times older than me, actually knows how to act young. Why didn't I discover this before? Spit it out if you have something to say. Let's make this clear first. I have a big business and everyone in the Great Tang Empire needs to rely on me to support them. So if you still want immortal crystals, then I'm really sorry. Star Devourer Insect said, I don't want immortal crystals. You just need to provide me with ores, metals, or anything else. As long as it's not garbage, it can become my nourishment. I can also extract the essence from it and absorb it. Master, don't you want a super Star Devourer Insect to be your bodyguard? No, to be your hired thug. If you don't like anyone, I'll just swallow him. Tan Xiu looked at it strangely and asked, You didn't just improve your strength, right? I think your IQ has also evolved. Star Devourer Insect beamed with joy and said, Now that I've been taken into your body, Master, what you've experienced is what I've experienced. So of course I have to raise my IQ, or else I'd be letting down Master's reward. Damn you. When Tan Xiu thought of the things between him and the women, he couldn't help but curse. However, on second thought, why would he care about a bug? What did it know about the matters between men and women? All right, I'll provide it to you in the future. After saying that, Tan Xiu directly stored it into his body. When he left the heavenly abode artifact and appeared in front of Gu Yin, he said with a faint smile, You can rest assured that I have another golden immortal hatchet man. I guarantee there won't be any danger. Star Devourer Insect has actually broken through to the golden immortal stage? Gu Yin was surprised. Its cultivation speed is really fast. If my guess is correct, those 35,000 monster immortals will probably break through to the golden immortal stage soon, said Tan Xiu. After all, they have lived for too long, and their strength will advance by leaps and bounds after they obtain immortal cultivation techniques. Just wait and see. It won't be long before our great Tang Empire will have tens of thousands of golden immortals. Gu Yin nodded with a smile. But then, her expression changed slightly. She realized that although she could still hold the position of the strongest powerhouse in the Great Tang Empire now, her position would be in jeopardy if a large number of golden immortals appeared in a while. Breakthrough. She must break through to the perfected golden immortal stage as soon as possible. As long as she could return to the perfected golden immortal stage, she would be able to maintain her position as the strongest powerhouse in the Great Tang Empire. Green Summit Bazaar. It was a street in a remote area of moon-gazing Monarch City. The environment here was ordinary and the floors weren't particularly high. However, all the people who lived in moon-gazing Monarch City knew that it was a chaotic place. People from all walks of life gathered here, and brothels and casinos could be seen everywhere. A huge black market had gradually formed in such a mixed place. Inside the black market, many things that couldn't be found anywhere else in moon-gazing Monarch City could be found here. For example, there were still a lot of evil things here. Even things from the demon realm, monster realm, Azura realm, and other worlds could be found here. As long as one had enough immortal stones, immortal crystals, and crystal essences in their interspatial rings, they could buy whatever they liked here. Tan Xiu, Tang Along, Battle Pang, and several other golden immortal experts disguised as ordinary cultivators and mingled in the Green Summit Bazaar. Tan Xiu's main purpose this time was to buy the resources needed to cultivate the heavenly art of cosmic genesis, so he, an outsider, was looking for a guide. Dragonfly. He was a nobody who mingled at the bottom of the Green Summit Bazaar. He was the kind of person who was smooth and slick in dealing with people and ghosts. In short, he relied on his shrewdness to live a comfortable life. It was one of his identities that he used to earn extra money. However, he had been mingling here for hundreds of years, Yet he had never met a real local tycoon, nor had he received any big rewards. At the entrance of a spirit beast shop, Dragonfly leaned on the door of the shop, looking bored. His eyes casually glanced at the crowd coming and going. Suddenly, his expression changed and his eyes locked on a group of 9 people passing by not far away. He had a special ability that only he knew. It was the ability to sense the aura of others. Even if the other party converged all their aura, he could still sense them and judge their approximate cultivation level. An ordinary immortal, accompanied by an ordinary cultivator, and 7 golden immortal experts. They're not from the Green Summit Bazaar because I've never seen them before. Judging from their appearance, they're here to buy something. Perhaps it's because they're not familiar with this place, so they're just searching blindly. After Dragonfly judged this, he immediately went to greet the 9 people. A smile hung on his delicate and pretty face. When he blocked the way of Tanshio's group of 9, he nodded and bowed, saying with a smile, "Do you need a guide, sirs? I'm Dragonfly, an inquisitive person in this Green Summit Bazaar. If you want to buy some special things, if you need something, just tell me and I'll take you to the best place to buy what you want." "Tell me your price," said Tanshio. Upon hearing this, Dragonfly immediately rubbed his hands and smilingly said, "Sirs, you've encountered the best guide, so the price will be much more expensive. 2 immortal stones a day. Of course, the price I charge is higher than others, but that's because I can help you bargain when you buy things. If anyone dares to cheat you, I promise to expose them. Also, there's one more thing I promise not to eat the bonus." "Do you understand the meaning of eating the bonus?" "I understand." Tanshio nodded. Eating the bonus was some guides that would take the guests to familiar shops. After the guests bought something, they would get some commission from those shops. Tanshio looked at Dragonfly and smilingly said, "You have an interesting name, and your self-recommendation is quite effective. I'm indeed here to buy some things. If you can serve me well, I'll give you 2 immortal crystals a day." "Don't worry, I promise I'll do well." Suddenly, his words came to an abrupt halt. An incredulous look appeared on his delicate and pretty face. He blinked and then stammered, "What did you say? You can give me 2 immortal crystals a day? And not immortal stones?" "You didn't hear it wrong." Tanshio lightly smiled and said, "If you can do well in the task, not only will I give you 2 immortal crystals a day, but I'll also give you a good reward after I buy all the things I need. As for the amount of the reward, it will depend on your ability in the process." Dragonfly looked ecstatic as he repeatedly nodded and bowed. "You can rest assured, master. I, Dragonfly, swear to the heavenly Tao that I'll do my best to serve you. In the following days, you'll be my heaven, my earth, my food, my parents, and my great benefactor. You can tell me now what kind of items you want to buy and I'll take you there right away. You should know where to sell demon stones, right?" asked Tanshio. Dragonfly stared blankly for a moment before he immediately nodded and said, "I know. Almost all the things sold in the Dark Court Corridor are from the demon realm. Besides, the Dark Court Corridor is also the shop with the most demon stones in the entire Green Summit Bazaar. Lead the way." Tanshio nodded and said. The Dark Court Corridor was deep in the Green Summit Bazaar and extended far to the side. When everyone came here, Tanshio found that this Dark Court Corridor was actually a very high-grade demon tool. Apart from its defensive function, it didn't have any offensive function, so it became a shop. After everyone came to the interior of the Dark Court Corridor, they found that there were many stalls and independent shops inside. Behind each stall and in each shop, there were people selling demon realm items. "Do you want to buy or sell?" 2 majestic big men in black armor came to greet them. Their eyes swept over everyone as the big man on the left asked in a deep voice. "I want to buy," said Tanshio. The big man on the left nodded and said, "1 immortal stone per person as the entrance fee." Tanshio casually took out 10 immortal stones and handed them over. After watching them leave, he then looked at the stalls and independent shops inside. Dragonfly was obviously a frequent visitor here as he greeted many stall owners and shop owners with a smile. Chapter 1280. Walking slowly along the dark corridor, Tanshio's eyes constantly swept across the stalls on both sides. His divine sense enveloped the surrounding area, observing the items in the stalls and independent shops. He did find some magic stones, but after seeing the things here, he suddenly realized that there were more things that were better for him than magic stones, such as magic cores and magic marrow. In addition, there were also a lot of magic fruits and magic liquids. What surprised Tan Xiu the most was that someone actually dared to sell magic cores. One must know, items from the demon realm had always been rejected by the orthodox immortals. Some people with a sense of justice would even forcibly kill those who sold items from the demon realm. Tan Xiu was not that kind of extreme person. In his opinion, there were many good things in the demon realm. If it could be used properly, the effect would be better than the things in the immortal realm. Cockroach had been following Tan Xiu. Although he kept greeting the stall owners and shop owners, his eyes mostly stayed on Tan Xiu. After walking for a kilometer, Cockroach finally couldn't help but ask, "Master, are you considering which stall or shop? If this is the reason, I suggest you go to the great demon venerable's shop to buy things. Although the prices there are very expensive, the good things are the most comprehensive." Tan Xiu said, "Take us there." All right. Cockroach took Tan Xiu and the others hundreds of meters forward and finally stopped outside an independent shop. His eyes glanced at the shop assistant inside the door, and then shouted, "Hairy Teeth, don't play tricks with this young master. Honored guests have come, hurry up and let the great demon venerable come out to greet them." The shop assistant rolled his eyes and glanced at Tan Xiu and the others a few times, and then slowly shouted inside, "Uncle 18, there are guests coming, come out and greet them." After a while, when Tan Xiu and the others stepped into the shop, they saw a middle-aged man who was as fat as a big ball walking out lazily. His narrow eyes swept across Tan Xiu and the others before he asked with a smile, "What would you like to buy?" Tan Xiu withdrew his divine sense. Since they were not the only customers in the shop, he said, "Demon stones, demon pith, demon fruit, and demon liquid. Of course, if the quality of your magic dan is not bad, I want it too." A big customer. Great Demon Venerable was surprised. He grinned and said, "Honored guest, the things you need are on display in the shop. You can directly pick them up and then calculate the total price. Don't worry, if you buy a lot of things, I will give you a discount." All right. Tan Xiu took the interspatial ring handed over by the Great Demon Venerable. He walked past the shelves and put the magic stones, magic marrow, magic fruit, and magic liquid into the interspatial ring. Because each item had a price tag, Tan Xiu knew the value of these things. Finally, Tan Xiu stopped in the innermost corner and looked at the dozens of bottles and jars on the shelves. A glint flashed in his eyes as he put all the magic dan on the shelves into the interspatial ring. Just as he was about to leave, 5 figures blocked his way. "Sir, no matter how rich you are, you don't need to sweep everything here, do you? I really need this miasma pill. I've been looking for it in many places before I found it here. I'll pay double the price. How about you give it to me?" said the burly man with an indifferent expression. "Sorry, first come first served." Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "This miasma pill is also very useful to me, so I can't transfer it to you." A cold light flashed in the burly man's eyes as he indifferently said, "You haven't paid the bill yet, have you?" "Not yet." Tan Xiu nodded. "You haven't paid the bill yet, so it's not yours," said the burly man. "Since it's from this shop, it's only natural that the highest bidder gets it. I'm too lazy to deal with you, so let's compare our wealth and see who can afford the higher price. How about it? I've already put it in my interspatial ring, so I have the first right to buy it." Tan Xiu shook his head. "You can't get it unless I give it up. Brat, do you want to court death? My young master wants it, so you must take it out, else I'll make sure you won't be able to walk out of the Green Summit Bazaar." An old man behind the burly man shouted with an intense killing intent on his face. Tan Xiu glanced at him indifferently. His eyes then fell on the burly man's face as he lightly smiled and said, "Is this also your idea?" The burly man didn't speak, but his cold eyes explained his attitude. Tan Xiu turned to look at the Great Demon Venerable and lightly smiled. "Who do you want to sell it to?" The Great Demon Venerable let out a hollow laugh and said, "Please discuss it." You can pay the bill after you've discussed it. Tan Xiu looked at the burly man again and nodded. Since you want to compete with me in wealth, then I'll make you disgrace yourself. A bottle of miasma pills is worth 80,000 immortal crystals. I'll pay 800,000 immortal crystals for it, 10 times the price. Do you want to bid higher than me? I'll pay 1 million immortal crystals, said the burly man with a sneer. 2 million, said Tan Xiu. 3 million. The burly man spoke again. Tan Xiu slightly furrowed his brows. After thinking for a while, he angrily said, 10 million immortal crystals. I'll pay 10 million immortal crystals. Do you still dare to bid? The chill in the burly man's eyes intensified as he stared at Tan Xiu as though he wanted to see through Tan Xiu. After a long time, he coldly said, 11 million immortal crystals. Tan Xiu rolled his eyes and murmured, Are all the rich people nowadays fools? This miasma pill is worth 100,000 immortal crystals at most, yet you're willing to pay 11 million immortal crystals. You're really stupid. Forget it, I don't want to offend you. I'll give it to you since you want it. I won't say anything if you're willing to pay 80,000 immortal crystals. After saying that, he took out the miasma pill from his interspatial ring and threw it to the burly man. Then, he handed the interspatial ring to the great demon venerable. He looked at the great demon venerable's angry face and lightly smiled. I've bought a lot of things and I've also provoked you. I hope you can give me a discount, else I won't mind publicizing what happened today. The great demon venerable was angry that Tan Xiu was willing to pay 80,000 immortal crystals for the miasma pill. But his price was there, and it was Tan Xiu and the burly man who had a dispute just now, so he could only suppress his anger. As his spiritual sense swept the interspatial ring, he said, 64,720,000 immortal crystals. Since you bought so many things, I'll give you a discount. I don't want the 20,000 immortal crystals. Is this your discount? Tan Xiu frowned. Do you think I'm short of immortal crystals? Great demon venerable coldly snorted and said, I'm not happy, so I'll give you a discount. You can buy it if you want, but scram if you don't. At the side, Dragonfly's complexion changed and he said in a deep voice, I've always respected you, great demon venerable. That's why I brought him to your shop as soon as I met him. Come to think of it, in the past 50 years, I've brought you at least a few hundred guests. Although you also rewarded me with a lot of immortal stones, you earned more. It took me a lot of effort to get this gentleman to come to you. I'll immediately leave with this lord if you shut the door because of your anger. I'll never step into your shop again in the future. A murderous glint flashed in Great Demon Venerable's eyes as he glared at Dragonfly. He quickly thought about it and finally, the icy expression on his face dissipated a lot and he angrily said, You little bastard, you dare to threaten me? You're really capable now. Forget it. 64 million. I'll take the 720,000 immortal crystals from you. Dragonfly observed Tan Xiu. Looking at his indifferent expression, he suddenly gritted his teeth and said, Great Demon Venerable, you're the one I've always respected the most. You're even my idol. I've fantasized countless times that I can be as powerful as you in the future and become a businessman like you. The things this lord has bought are more than what dozens of people have bought in the past. I'm afraid the profit is unimaginable. Hence, 60 million immortal crystals. If you can sell it for 60 million, I'll introduce all the guests I've won to you in the future. That's impossible. Great Demon Venerable nearly jumped up and angrily yelled, My profit from these things is less than 72 million immortal crystals, yet you want me to reduce it by so much? Are you crazy? I don't want the commission from all the customers I've brought later, Dragonfly said aloud. Great Demon Venerable's breathing stagnated as he incredulously looked at Dragonfly and asked, What the hell are you talking about? Who the hell is this brat to you? You're even willing to cut off your source of income for him? This lord is a good man, said Dragonfly with all seriousness. The tips he gave me were much more than those people before. Furthermore, he didn't reprimand or despise me and even gave a little bit of respect to a nobody like me. Hence, I'm willing to pay some price for this lord. Great Demon Venerable fell into silence. He looked at Dragonfly and then at Tan Xiu. After a long while, he shook his head and sighed. Forget it. I won't insist on my previous price. 62 million immortal crystals. Pay up quickly if you're willing, but leave immediately if you don't. Tan Xiu patted Dragonfly's shoulder and directly took out an interspatial ring and handed it to Great Demon Venerable, saying, there are 600,000 crystal essences and 2 million immortal crystals inside. Great Demon Venerable counted and finally nodded. That's right. The amount is enough. If you still need other things, just pick whatever you want. Leave now if you don't want anything else. Tan Xiu glanced at the burly man at the side who seemed to be watching the fun and said, it's better to get rid of enmity than to keep it alive. It can be said that no discord, no concord. Farewell, we'll meet again if fate wills it. The burly man directly turned his face to the side and sneered inwardly. He was very vengeful, and he still remembered that Tan Xiu had just cursed him. Chapter 1281. After leaving the shop, Tan Xiu didn't directly leave the Green Summit Bazaar. If he hadn't had a conflict with the burly man, perhaps he would have saved some of his wealth and saved it for a rainy day. But now, what he wanted to do was to spend money like crazy. At the very least, he wanted to spend all the immortal stones, immortal crystals, and crystal essences he had. Crazy! Dragonfly had previously realized that Tan Xiu should have a lot of wealth, but he never thought that Tan Xiu's wealth would be so terrifying. In just 3 days, Dragonfly calculated in his mind and found that the total number of Tan Xiu's spending had exceeded hundreds of millions of immortal crystals. Hundreds of millions of immortal crystals. Dragonfly had heard that many superpower houses had wealth of more than hundreds of millions of immortal crystals, but he never imagined that someone could spend so much wealth in just a few days. It's about time. When Tan Xiu came out of a shop with everyone, he was already satisfied. The price of spending hundreds of millions of immortal crystals was that he wouldn't need to worry about cultivation resources for a long time in the future. Even the cultivation resources he had now were enough for him to make another breakthrough and reach the second stage, the 9th level of the stellar heavenly essence. Once he broke through to the 9th level, he would be comparable to a powerhouse at the peak of the golden immortal stage. He would even be able to kill people who were at the early or intermediate stage of the perfected golden immortal stage. Tan Xiu's gaze shifted to the flattering Dragonfly. He raised his hand and patted his shoulder. Then, he took out 10 crystal essences and handed them to him, saying, considering that you've worked hard to accompany me to shop for the past 4 days and haggled the price, this is your reward. Dragonfly's expression became sluggish, his eyes revealing a look of disbelief. Even his hands, which were holding the 10 crystal essences, were slightly trembling. Crystal essences? And 10 at that? One must know that a crystal essence could be exchanged for 10,000 immortal stones. 10 crystal essences were equal to 100,000 immortal stones. Dragonfly had lived for 100 years and was now a nascent soul expert. But he never dreamed that he could earn 100,000 immortal stones in this life. Because so many immortal stones were an enormous amount in his eyes. Tan Xiu faintly smiled, but inwardly he felt a bit apologetic. That was because he only had 10 crystal essences left on him. Otherwise, he really wouldn't have minded giving more to the Dragonfly. Let's meet again. Having said that, he took Tang Oolong, Battle Pang, and the other 6 golden immortals to the end of Green Peak Bazaar. Dragonfly held the 10 crystal essences and slowly raised his head to look at Tan Xiu's back. His lips squirmed a few times, and suddenly, an aura erupted from his body. Although it was very weak, his eyes were particularly firm. He went straight to the direction where Tan Xiu left and knelt on both knees, shouting, "Master, can you accept me? I, Dragonfly, am willing to follow you forever." Tan Xiu stopped, and the 8 people behind him stepped aside. Tan Xiu looked at the kneeling Dragonfly, and a strange expression appeared on his face. It was a familiar scene. Did it happen nearly 1,000 years ago? That ragged little beggar with a head full of dirt, his eyes filled with gratitude, begging, and determination, how similar were the eyes of Dragonfly. Tan Xiu still remembered that he accepted the little beggar as his disciple. The little beggar followed him and devoted himself to cultivation until he became a perfected golden immortal. It was also because he unintentionally said that he wanted a special flower from the endless abyss. The little beggar went through thousands of celestial domains and went deep into the endless abyss, risking his life to pluck that special flower. It was also because of this strange flower that the little beggar was chased by a group of perfected golden immortals from a large sect. They chased him through many immortal domains. That time, Tan Shio was too late. When he arrived, he had already slaughtered all those perfected golden immortals. Finally, he held the dying little beggar, took the strange flower with tears in his eyes, and watched the little beggar's soul fly away and scatter. It was also at that time that Tan Shio slaughtered the entire sect, a total of more than 48,000 immortals, including one supreme, 34 perfected golden immortals and countless golden immortals. Step by step, Tan Shio walked to the front of Dragonfly and looked at the familiar eyes. He murmured, "Give me a reason." Dragonfly said, "I work hard for you, and you make me stronger." Tan Shio's heart fiercely twitched a few times. He could hardly believe his ears, because he asked the same question back then, and the little beggar gave the same answer. It was exactly the same. Not a single word was wrong. Tan Shio clenched his fists and slowly loosened them. When he reached out to pull Dragonfly up, he said word by word, "Dragonfly, you're my disciple from today onward. I want you to work hard for me, but I also want you to become stronger." "Master." Dragonfly knelt down again and directly kowtowed 3 times to Tan Shio. He was eager for an opportunity. He wanted to become stronger. Although Tan Shio was just an ordinary immortal in his eyes who hadn't even reached the Earth Immortal stage, he believed that Tan Shio was very powerful. After all, not everyone could go out with 7 golden immortals. Tang Ong let out a smile. This time, he reached out to pull Dragonfly up and smilingly said, "My name is Tang Ong. Call me Senior Brother Ah Lang." Dragonfly stared blankly and respectfully called out, "Senior Brother Ah Lang." The smile on Tang Along's face turned thicker. He took out 9 crystal essences from his interspatial ring and handed them to Dragonfly. "Master gave you 10 crystal essences, but I can't give more than Master. I'll give you 9 crystal essences. It's the red envelope I gave you for our first meeting." "Thank you, Senior Brother Ah Lang," said Dragonfly gratefully. Tan Shio smiled and asked, "We're not from Hessian Castle, so we'll leave this immortal domain in a few months." "We're not from Hessian Castle. We'll leave this immortal region in a few months. I only have a friend who left with a caravan 2 years ago and is not in this immortal domain." "If that's the case, then follow me." Tan Shio nodded. "I only have a friend who left with a caravan 2 years ago and is not in this immortal domain. When you become stronger in the future, as long as that friend of yours is still alive, there will come a day when you will meet him." "All right." Dragonfly firmly nodded with a firm look in his eyes. He understood what Tan Shio meant. It was almost impossible to meet him again in the vast immortal world. There was only one way for him to reunite with his friends, and that was to become a true powerhouse and let everyone in the immortal world know his name. At that time, he only needed to say a word and countless people would help him find his friend. It was even possible that his friend would find him because of his fame. At the entrance of the Green Peak Bazaar, Tan Shio quietly sat in the tea house near the entrance, watching the street outside the window and quietly tasting the immortal tea in his cup. Aside from Tang Along, Dragonfly, and Battle Peng were the only golden immortal around him. The other 6 were nowhere to be found. Half a day passed by in a hurry. When one of the golden immortals, Kahale, appeared in front of Tan Shio, his eyes gleamed and he reported, "Master, the investigation has been done. The other party is the young master of Hessian Castle's hunter clan, Traceless Hunter. He's a sword immortal and has 4 golden immortals with him. They're also the hunter clan's experts responsible for protecting Traceless Hunter." "Where is he?" asked Tan Shio calmly. "Drunken Moon Inn," said Kahale. "The 6 of them are hiding in the dark and monitoring him." Tan Shio calmly said, "This Green Peak Bazaar isn't suitable for fighting. Let's wait. As the young master of a clan, he shouldn't be poor. I hope he doesn't let me down." I have an idea to make him leave this place earlier, master, said Tang Along with a smile. What is it? Asked Tan Xiu with a smile. Tang Along came to Tan Xiu's side and whispered a few words. The smile on Tan Xiu's face turned thicker. He nodded with satisfaction and said, It's a bit despicable, but it's the simplest and most effective way. Go arrange it. Make him leave the Green Peak Bazaar as soon as possible. Drunken Moon Inn. This was the highest grade restaurant in the Green Peak Bazaar. The delicious food and wine made countless people who liked to enjoy their meals linger and forget to go home. As the young master of the Hunter clan, Traceless Hunter had a distinguished status and many hobbies in his life, one of which was eating delicious food. Immortal goose liver, sky deer tongue, fish gelatin. As the delicious dishes were served, Traceless Hunter's mouth was full of grease and he kept drinking cups of immortal wine. Finally, after finishing the delicious dishes, he wiped the corner of his mouth with satisfaction and sighed. The Green Peak Bazaar is really a good place. There are many special ingredients here that can't be found in many places outside. Not bad at all. Let's take a stroll later and buy a lot of the precious ingredients from the demon realm. Understood. An old man among the 4 golden immortals respectfully replied. Traceless Hunter turned to look outside the window. A smile appeared on the corner of his mouth as he lightly said, That brat is quite interesting. He hasn't left the Green Peak Bazaar yet. He's bought a lot of things in the past few days. Although many of them are useless to me, I can still sell them for a high price. Listen, if he hasn't left in 10 days, sprinkle the soul-chasing incense on him. I'll take his life and all his wealth as long as he dares to step out of the Green Peak Bazaar. This subordinate will definitely handle this matter well, young master, said the old man respectfully. Traceless Hunter nodded with satisfaction. He raised his hand to touch his chin and said, I've almost forgotten how long it has been since the last person who scolded me. To be honest, I was very angry when I was scolded, but now I find it a bit strange. Don't kill him directly after he leaves the Green Peak Bazaar. I need to seal his mouth and then scold him to my heart's content before killing him. Suddenly, his ears twitched. After a quarter of an hour, his expression turned incredulous and a flame of anger directly burned in his eyes. His eyes shifted to the street outside the window and locked on several passers-by who were chatting and laughing. He gritted his teeth and said, Go and catch them for me. Chapter 1282. In front of outsiders, Traceless Hunter had always been clean and honest. He regarded his family and his reputation as more important than his life. Even if he had done a lot of despicable and shameless things, he did it in secret and then tried his best to erase the traces as soon as possible. He had just heard the passers-by below smearing his name. Not only did they say that he was despicable, shameless, sinister, and vulgar, but they also said that he was a homosexual and had a lot of male pets in private. Pet his grandpa. Traceless Hunter clenched his fists tightly and a crazy killing intent flashed in his eyes. He looked at the 4 passers-by who had their limbs broken and were dragged by his subordinates like dead dogs. He got up and came to the man who had just splashed dirty water on him. He grabbed his lapel and sternly shouted, This lord is the Hunter clan's young master, the Traceless Hunter you mentioned. What kind of enmity do we have between us that you dare to splash dirty water on me and ruin my reputation? The man whose limbs were broken looked fearful. He desperately shook his head and said, No. This lowly one is not qualified to have enmity with you, young Master Hunter. I just heard it from the grapevine. Everyone in the Green Summit Bazaar is talking about you now. What I just said was all from their mouths. What? Traceless Hunter was dumbfounded. He never dreamed that the entire Green Summit Bazaar was talking about him. Who was it? Who was splashing dirty water on him? Who was it that wanted to ruin his reputation? He didn't notice it. Many people in the restaurant were already looking in his direction. They didn't realize that the 4 men he had sent out to beat up the passers-by and roared angrily had been seen and heard by those people. It was also for this reason that his words, which were deliberately smeared by others, became true in everyone's eyes. At the side, a chilling light flashed in the eyes of the old man in the lead as he said in a heavy tone, "Young lord, someone must be deliberately spreading rumors to ruin your reputation. This subordinate will find out who it is and make him die without a burial place." "Find out? You must find out who it is," Traceless Hunter snapped. "Those who dare to bully me must be dismembered to pieces." The people in the surroundings looked at each other in dismay. Making others die without a burial place? And dismembered to pieces? Listening to these words, it was really vicious. The passerby who had his limbs broken and thrown on the ground immediately looked horrified and cried out involuntarily, I know where the person who spread the rumor is. They left the Green Summit Bazaar. I heard that they are heading in the direction of the Black Wind Forest." "Who's the other party?" Scarlet Hunter snapped. The passerby said with a sad face, "I don't know, we really don't know." However, it was said that there was a person who spread the news, and after he finished speaking, he clamored about going to the Black Wind Forest to hunt vicious beasts. We can't be sure if he was the one who spread the news first. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. Since they dare to spread the news and fabricate rumors to slander me, then they must pay a painful price. Let's go to the Black Wind Forest. At the side, one of the elders hastily said, "Young master, they only heard rumors. Those people might not have gone to the Black Wind Forest." Traceless Hunter sneered and said, "I'd rather believe it's true than not. As long as we follow the clues, we will definitely be able to find them." Half a quarter of an hour later, Traceless Hunter appeared at the entrance of the Green Summit Bazaar with his 4 golden immortal subordinates. His sharp eyes swept over the tea house on the side and he let out a cold snort before he left lightning fast. Traceless Hunter believed that those who scolded him in front of his face were also the ones who would eventually give in. He hated them more than those who spread rumors to slander him. A quarter of an hour later, Tan Xiu took Tang Along, Dragonfly, and Battle Peng to the Black Wind Forest according to the directions given by his 6 golden immortal subordinates. Their speed wasn't very fast, but half an hour later, they appeared near a group of people who were fighting. Boom! An early-stage golden immortal expert from the Hunter clan was bombarded in the chest by a streak of light. His body flew backward like a kite with a broken string. Traceless Hunter and the other 3 golden immortal experts all looked horrified. They wanted to rescue their companions, but the 6 enemies were too strong, so strong that they faintly felt despair. "It's him!" The despair on Traceless Hunter's face turned more intense after he saw Tan Xiu and the others appear. At this moment, he would be too stupid if he still couldn't realize that all of this was a trap for him. He even guessed that the ones who spread the rumors and slandered him were Tan Xiu and his men. "Who the hell are you, you bastard brat?" Traceless Hunter roared angrily while desperately resisting. A contemptuous look appeared on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth as he laughed aloud. "You don't need to know who I am, you bastard brat. It's because I want you to be a muddled ghost." "No, that's not right. Your soul is about to scatter, so it's impossible for you to be a muddled ghost. You took the initiative to admit defeat in the Green Summit Bazaar. Was that intentional?" Traceless Hunter angrily shouted. "Of course it was intentional." Tan Xiu chuckled. "If I didn't do it on purpose, wouldn't you have given those tens of millions of immortal crystals to Great Demon Venerable? It's better for me to snatch them than to let him have it. Speaking of which, I still have to thank you. I wouldn't have dared to spend all my immortal crystals and crystal essences if it weren't for your killing intent toward me. Aren't you afraid of my Hunter clan's revenge?" Traceless Hunter angrily shouted. "Killing people and destroying their corpses is what I'm best at." Tan Xiu sneered. "Do you think your Hunter clan's people will know who did it if I kill you today? All of you, go all out to avoid any unforeseen events." "Understood." The 6 late-stage golden immortals no longer held back. They were all ruthless characters who had wandered the line of life and death countless times, so they began to attack crazily the moment they heard the order. Even the immortal artifacts they used were refined by Tan Xiu, making them even more powerful than when they were in their hands. Sword lights flashed and saber lights splashed everywhere. Traceless Hunter could only watch helplessly as his 3 golden immortal subordinates who protected him were easily slaughtered by the enemy. Even their immortal souls couldn't escape as they were smashed by the immortal swords and sabers and eventually dissipated. He had experienced crisis many times, but he had never felt death so close to him like this time. Don't kill me. I'll return the miasma pill to you and give you 10 million immortal crystals. Tan Xiu rolled his eyes and cursed, Are you an idiot? As long as I kill you, not only the miasma pill and 10 million immortal crystals will be mine, but all your other wealth will also be mine. Kill him. Puff, Traceless Hunter's head was chopped off and his body disintegrated in an instant. Even his immortal soul was destroyed by the sword Qi and disappeared between heaven and earth. Tan Xiu took the 5 interspatial rings. After breaking the imprints on them, he swept them with his spiritual sense and immediately looked satisfied, because he found that there was a lot of wealth inside. There were 4 million crystal essences alone, and countless immortal crystals and immortal stones. The total wealth added up to more than 310 million immortal crystals. In addition, Traceless Hunter's interspatial ring also contained a large number of cultivation resources and precious items. As for the interspatial rings of the other 4 golden immortals, there were also a large number of immortal stones, immortal crystals, and crystal essences. Together with Traceless Hunter's ring, the final number was 6 million crystal essences, more than 120 million immortal crystals, and more than 80 million immortal stones. As for the other things, they were estimated to be worth 5 million crystal essences. Destroy the traces and evacuate immediately. Tan Xiu didn't want to have a conflict with the Hunter clan because he knew very well that the Great Tang Empire's current strength was not a match for them. After all, the Hunter clan had a perfected golden immortal. Once the two sides started fighting, even if he asked 9 Netherswordmeister for help, he would still suffer huge losses. 2 hours later, when Tan Xiu was thousands of kilometers away from here, dozens of lightning-fast figures appeared in the Black Wind Forest. They were the experts of the Hunter clan. After the Hunter clan's ancestor used a secret technique, they finally determined that the place where Traceless Hunter's group of 5 was killed was here. However, they searched hard for a long time and only found traces of a fight here. They couldn't find the bodies of Traceless Hunter's group of 5. In the next few days, they searched the entire Green Summit Bazaar and collected all kinds of information, but they didn't find any information about the murderer. In the dark corridor, the round great demon Venerable watched the dozens of powerhouses of the Hunter clan leave. His eyes flashed. He didn't expect that the young man who bought a lot of things here would be so bold and dared to kill the Hunter clan's young master. One must know that in the Hessen Castle Immortal Domain, only Madame Empyrean Pole of Mungjun City had a force stronger than the Hunter clan. There were also 2 other clans that were stronger than the Hunter clan. Daring to kill the Hunter clan's young master here was simply audacious. Listen to me. You are forbidden from divulging even half a word about what happened in our shop in the past few days. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless. The great demon Venerable was silent for a long time and then said solemnly. The shop assistants nodded one after another. One of them asked curiously, Venerable, do you think it's— Shut up. The great demon Venerable shouted coldly. The shop assistant shrunk his head and immediately looked frightened. We're merchants, people who open shops to do business. The great demon Venerable forced a smile. Our purpose is to make money, to make more and more money. We're not going to meddle in such matters. Besides, I have a hunch that Hessen Castle won't be peaceful in the future. Venerable, even if the Hunter clan's young master is killed, it won't have any impact on the entire Hessen Castle, right? At most, the Hunter clan will make trouble for a while. He even dared to kill the Hunter clan's young master. Do you think he's weak? Sneered the great demon Venerable. Do you think he doesn't have a huge background? The most important thing is that the Hunter clan's young master is very strong, and his 4 subordinates are golden immortals. Even they were silently slaughtered and erased without a trace. How could the other party be weak? Chapter 1283. Great Demon Venerable turned to look outside the shop. He lowered his voice and said again, A large number of powerhouses have come to Hessen Castle recently, including several perfected golden immortals. Several powerhouses from the surrounding immortal domains have also rushed to moon-gazing Monarch City because of the bet between 9 Netherswordmeister and Venerable Netherworld. On the surface, the entire moon-gazing Monarch City seems to be peaceful, but undercurrents are surging in the dark. If the news of the Hunter clan's young master's death were to spread out because of your wild speculations, it will bring us great trouble. The shop assistants looked at each other in dismay and finally realized the seriousness of the matter, so they promised that they would never speak about it. Great Demon Venerable waved his hand and said, "I'll give each of you 100 immortal crystals later. Just stay in the shop and cultivate for the time being. I'm going to stroll around and see some old friends." At the stargazing pavilion, as soon as Tan Xiu came back, he learned from Gu Yin that 6 spirit formation stage members of the Tiger Legion and a high-ranking official of the Great Tang Empire, Chen Xiaohua, had been attacked by a group of unidentified experts. The other side had an immortal holding the line. Fortunately, the demon immortal who was protecting them appeared in time and prevented them from being killed. "Who are these people?" Tan Xiu's face turned cold and he asked in a deep voice. "There's no news yet," Gu Yin'er said. "The intelligence department doesn't have an intelligence network here, and we're not familiar with this place, so we don't know who they are for the time being. However, 2 golden immortals have rushed over there and they should be able to solve the problem there." "Where are they?" asked Tan Xiu. "They're at the Thick Earth River, where the river breaks off," answered Guing. "Let's go," Tan Xiu said. "Let's go and have a look. We met a lot of powerhouses on the way back, and many of them should be from other immortal domains. I think moon-gazing Monarch City won't be very peaceful in the coming days." "What's going to happen?" Gu Yin'er was confused. "Isn't the bet between 2 perfected golden immortals a big deal?" asked Tan Xiu lightly. "This Hessen Castle is just a small immortal domain, there are no supremes here at all. A perfected golden immortal is already considered very terrifying among the billions of living beings here." "You're right." Gu Yin'er nodded and said, "There are only a few perfected golden immortals in the entire Hessen Castle. Not even 1 in a million perfected golden immortals could break through to the supremacy stage. Therefore, the bet between 2 perfected golden immortals was indeed a big deal. However, the cultivation of our Great Tang Empire's people isn't high, so it shouldn't be a problem if we just restrain them and let them understand the situation in the immortal world and prevent them from stirring up trouble." Tan Xiu said, "There are too many people in the Empire, so accidents are inevitable. I've decided to buy a batch of golden immortal experts from the convict arena in the near future." "We only have 20 golden immortals now," Gu Yin'er nodded and said, "It's indeed not enough. If we buy another batch, we'll be able to deal with any danger we encounter in the future." Thick Earth River, where the flow stopped. 2 golden immortals and a celestial immortal monster immortal from the Great Tang Empire blocked Chen Xiaohua and the 6 members of the Tiger Legion and confronted a group of immortals. At this moment, the celestial immortal monster immortal's clothes were stained with green blood, and the immortal sword in his hand was broken into 2 pieces. Chen Xiaohua and the 6 members of the Tiger Legion were also scarred and looked very miserable. The other party, there were a total of 18 people. Apart from a profound immortal, there were 4 celestial immortals, and the rest were cultivators whose strength was almost at the soul formation stage. The young man surrounded by the 4 celestial immortals and 1 profound immortal was a soul formation cultivator. He didn't look very old and was at most 17 or 18 years old. His face was pale, and his body was thin, giving him an unruly look. "Hand over the purple diamond gold and I'll spare your lives. Otherwise, you'll die without a burial place when the elders of my Nightwolf clan arrive." The young man's murderous eyes constantly swept over the members of the Great Tang Empire and threatened them. Although Chen Xiaohua was seriously injured, his eyes still flashed with a cold light. After walking to the side of the 2 golden immortals, he said indifferently, "We got the purple diamond gold first. Why should we give it to you? I told you that unless you're willing to buy it with 1 million immortal crystals, don't even think about it." The young man clenched his fists and his eyes flashed with murderous intent. He raised his chin and said, No one dares to snatch the things that I, Nightwolf Skyflower, have taken a fancy to. Even if you took a fancy to it first, you must hand it over. This young master is very upset now. If you don't hand it over, I'll make you die without a burial place." After saying that, a purple gold wine gourd appeared in his hand out of thin air. He pulled out the cork and drank a mouthful of immortal wine. Then, he said proudly, "You should be from the other immortal domains, right? You've never heard of my Nightwolf clan. You're really ignorant. Let me tell you, my Nightwolf clan is one of the top clans in the entire moon-gazing monarch city. Our clan has countless golden immortals, and our ancestor is a late-stage golden immortal. Unfortunately, our ancestor is meeting with his old friend in moon-gazing monarch city. This young master has just informed my ancestor, so he might be able to arrive soon. If you don't hand over the purple diamond gold, you'll definitely die a miserable death." Late-stage golden immortal? Disdain flashed in the eyes of the two late-stage golden immortals. However, their duty was to protect the people of the Great Tang Empire, not to be the master of the clan. Therefore, they just looked at Chen Xiaohua. As long as Chen Xiaohua gave the order, they would immediately kill him. Chen Xiaohua was a bit hesitant. He didn't know that the two powerhouses beside him were late-stage golden immortals. He even remembered what His Majesty Tan Xiu had said, that he shouldn't stir up trouble outside. In addition, he didn't know much about the situation in the immortal world, and he didn't know how big the clans in the immortal world were. Therefore, he was a bit hesitant and didn't know what to choose. Suddenly, everyone looked in the direction of moon-gazing monarch city. They could feel dozens of powerful auras approaching them. One of the auras even made the two late-stage golden immortals of the Great Tang Empire feel a sense of crisis. Bush, bush, bush. In just a few breaths, dozens of figures had appeared in front of everyone. "Tianhua, I've received your distress signal. What's going on here?" One of the elders asked with a frown. "Tianhua, I've received your distress signal." Tianhua Yelong hurriedly shouted, "Ancestor, the purple diamond gold I wanted was actually snatched away by this group of people. Originally, we juniors who haven't ascended to immortal realm fought with them, but they weren't our match, so a monster immortal took action. Then, they couldn't beat us, so they called for help. Those two fellows seem to be profound immortals." Yelong Hongwu, the ancestor of the Yelong family, had broken through to the perfected golden immortal realm a few decades ago. However, he was a low-key person, so only a few people in the entire moon-gazing monarch city knew that he had broken through to the perfected golden immortal realm. He looked at the two golden immortals of the Great Tang Empire and frowned slightly. He was keenly aware that although the other party exuded the aura of a golden immortal powerhouse, it still made him feel a bit of fear. Just two weak late-stage golden immortals. "Just kill them," a fat middle-aged man standing next to Yelong Hongwu said indifferently with disdain in his eyes. Yelong Hongwu recalled his identity as a perfected golden immortal and the mid-stage perfected golden immortal 9 Netherswordmeister next to him. He immediately showed a relaxed expression and sneered. "Indeed, golden immortals do have some ability, but it's also very easy to kill them." Chen Xiaohua's expression changed. He was keenly aware of the change in the expressions of the two golden immortals next to him and immediately had a bad premonition. He knew that he was probably in trouble. However, he gritted his teeth and took a few steps forward again. Then, he said in a deep voice, "Although you are all powerhouses, perhaps even perfected golden immortals, but this matter has nothing to do with the other people of the Great Tang Empire. I admit that I'm not your opponent. I'll give you the purple diamond gold. You can kill me if you want, but don't implicate others." "Bullshit, Great Tang Empire. You're just a bunch of cowards." Yelong Hongwu sneered. With that said, he was about to attack. At the side, 9 Netherswordmeister wore a strange expression. He noticed that Yelong Hongwu was about to attack, so he hurriedly raised his hand to stop him. He then looked at Chen Xiaohua and asked, "You said you're from the Great Tang Empire? Does your Great Tang Empire have someone called Great Tang Heavenly Emperor?" "Great Tang Heavenly Emperor?" Chen Xiaohua knew that this was Tan Xiu's alias in the immortal world, so he indifferently said, He's the emperor of our great Tang Empire. Nine Nether Swordmeister was stunned. He immediately looked at the two late-stage golden immortals and asked, "Did Great Tang Heavenly Emperor buy you from the convict arena?" "That's right," answered one of the golden immortals. Nine Nether Swordmeister forced a smile and waved his hand. "Brother Yelong, let's just forget about this matter. I'll be the peacemaker and give this purple diamond gold to the people of the Great Tang Empire." Yelong Hongwu looked surprised and asked, "Do you know this Great Tang Heavenly Emperor, Brother Nine Nether?" "Not only that, but I also bought these two golden immortals from the convict arena." Nine Nether Swordmeister nodded and said, "Not only that, but I also bought these two golden immortals from the convict arena. I bought them from a total of 20 late-stage golden immortals, all of whom came from the convict arena." Gasp! Yelong Hongwu looked incredulous and asked in surprise, "What's the origin of this Great Tang Heavenly Emperor, Brother Nine Nether? He's actually worth your—" Nine Nether Swordmeister interrupted him and smilingly said, "Speaking of which, I'm also quite curious about this Great Tang Lil Bro's identity. But everyone has their own secrets. Since he doesn't want to tell me now, I naturally won't force him. Also, I had a bet with this Great Tang Lil Bro, but I didn't expect that I would lose to him. Therefore, he'll be one of my external helpers 3 months later." Chapter 1284. Hongwu pondered for a moment and silently nodded. "Since Brother Nine Nether wants to be the peacemaker, then let's just forget about this matter. It's just a purple diamond or, it's nothing to me." Tianhua Yelong didn't know Nine Nether Swordmeister's identity, so he immediately became anxious and shouted, "Why are you listening to others, ancestor? That purple diamond or can strengthen my bones to the point that they're comparable to the bones of crossing tribulation stage experts. You must help me snatch it." "You bastard!" A cold light flashed in Hongwu Yelong's eyes. Although he was somewhat reluctant, he still slapped Tianhua Yelong's face and sent him flying more than 10 meters away. Then he slowly turned around and looked in the direction of Mungmenarch City. At the same time, the others also looked in the direction of Mungmenarch City because they all sensed more than a dozen powerful auras coming over. "I didn't expect to see you here, Brother Nine Nether." Surrounded by a group of people, Tan Xiu came in front of everyone with a bright smile on his handsome face. "I was chatting with Brother Hongwu Yelong in Mungmenarch City, but I didn't expect that he would receive a call for help from his family's juniors, so I followed him here. I didn't expect that the juniors of the Yelong family would have a conflict with your people." Tan Xiu nodded with a smile and quickly threw 8 healing pills to Chen Xiaohua and the others. Then, he looked at Hongwu Yelong and lightly smiled. "Are you Hongwu Yelong, sir?" Hongwu Yelong's brows were tightly furrowed. He never expected that one of Nine Nether Swordmeister's helpers would turn out to be a young man who had just broken through to the immortal stage. Yet, such a person dared to call himself Great Tang Heavenly Emperor? Hongwu Yelong secretly shook his head. Out of consideration for Nine Nether Swordmeister's sake, he was about to speak when his eyes inadvertently glanced at Gu Yen behind Tan Xiu. What? Hongwu Yelong's expression froze and his pupils suddenly shrunk. Even his body trembled violently. Then he staggered back a few steps, his eyes widened in fear, and slowly raised his arm to point at Gu Yen. Gu Yen frowned deeply. She didn't expect that she would actually meet someone she was familiar with in such a remote immortal domain. Taking a step forward, Gu Yen indifferently said, "That dog of mine in the past has unexpectedly become a perfected golden immortal. If I had known that something like this would happen today, I would have killed you directly to save our time." The expression on Hongwu's face was uglier than crying. Nine Nether Swordmeister and the rest of the Yelong clan were confused as he staggered toward Gu Yen, step by step. Beads of sweat covered his forehead, face, and neck. When he was only a dozen meters away from Gu Yen, his knees slammed to the ground and his forehead hit the ground. Full of fear, he said in a trembling voice, "It's this lowly one who deserves to die. I didn't know they were your people. Please, please spare my lowly life, please." This scene, these words made everyone dumbfounded. Everyone was dumbfounded, and their eyes were filled with disbelief. Nine Nether Swordmeister's eyes were full of vigilance, and a storm was brewing inside his heart. It must be noted that Hangwu was now a perfected golden immortal. Even if he had just broken through to the perfected golden immortal stage not long ago, the fact that he could take this step showed that he was already very strong. However, he was a dignified perfected golden immortal. He actually looked like a dog kneeling in front of Gu Yener and begging for mercy. What did this mean? It meant that the woman next to Great Tang Heavenly Emperor was absolutely terrifying. Gu Yener just glanced at him indifferently and then turned to Tan Xiu and respectfully said, "Master, I slaughtered an entire immortal domain back then because I was too lazy to deal with some ants, so I caught some ruthless people and made them kill people for me. He's one of them. I remember that he was just a little guy at the golden immortal stage at that time." Master? Hangwu was so scared that his soul almost left his body and he nearly pissed his pants. Back then, this demoness strength was already terrifying to the extreme, yet he never thought that this Great Tang Heavenly Emperor would turn out to be her master. Heavens! They deliberately hid their strength like this. This is no different from pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. Tan Xiu gently nodded and looked at Hangwu, who was kneeling on the ground. He quickly thought about how to solve this matter. Their identities were very important and couldn't be easily exposed. Gu Yener once told him that although she had killed many people in the immortal world, only a few people knew that she was his disciple. In other words, the other party only knew that Gu Yener was very terrifying, but he couldn't guess his identity through Gu Yener. Furthermore, he was now a perfected golden immortal. If he really fought with him, even if his side won in the end, it was likely that they would have to pay a huge price. Then, Tan Xiu sighed faintly and said, "Yener, I've told you many times not to kill the innocent. I didn't restrain you when you messed around in the past, but don't do it again in the future. Did help you, after all, so he's not your enemy. Just forget it." Gu Yener tacitly understood. She looked at Hangwu and indifferently said, "You must be very clear about my rules. What should be done and what shouldn't be done, what should be said and what shouldn't be said." Hangwu looked ecstatic and nodded desperately. Yes. This lowly one will abide by your rules. I won't do anything that I shouldn't do. I won't say anything that I shouldn't say. Go back to your territory and don't come out again for 100 years, said Gu Yener. Yes. I'll get the hell out of here right away. Hangwu revealed an expression of gratitude. Then he waved his sleeve, and the other members of the Yelong clan exploded into a mist of blood. They were killed in an instant. Then, as if he wished he could grow a few more legs, he fled into the distance in a sorry state. Nine Nether Swordmeister was completely shaken. He never dreamed that a dignified perfected golden immortal like the Yelong, Hangwu, would be afraid to such an extent that he would even kill his descendants with his own hands because of the other party's identity. Just how scared was he? Tan Xiu secretly shook his head. Then, he looked at Nine Nether Swordmeister and lightly smiled. Sorry, Brother Nine Nether. I made a joke out of myself. Nine Nether Swordmeister quietly gulped and shook his head with a forced smile. It's not a joke, but it's a bit scary. Brother Hangwu Yelong. He's also a perfected golden immortal, but I didn't expect that he would be. Forget it. There are some things I understand, so I won't ask. Great Tang brother, I hope you can help me in the bet 2 or 3 months from now. Don't worry. Tan Xiu nodded and smilingly said, I will do my best. Nine Nether Swordmeister took another look at Gu Yen, and then took his leave. He was now secretly guessing whether Gu Yener was deliberately hiding her strength. Otherwise, how could a golden immortal frighten a Zenith Heaven golden immortal like that? In the same place, only Tan Xiu's group was left. Gu Yener transmitted her voice and asked, Master, should we kill the Yelong Hangwu? Tan Xiu asked, he knows your true identity? And our relationship? Gu Yener said, he knows my true identity, but he doesn't know our relationship. Tan Xiu said, knowing your identity is a troublesome matter after all. Others might not know about the relationship between us, but they definitely did, including the Celestial Mystery Emperor and Shade Demon Zhu Wushou. So, before we leave, we must get rid of him. Gu Yener said, in that case, I'm afraid we need to stay here for a long time. Tan Xiu gave it a thought and said, no need. I'm going to the Tianluo immortal domain and will come back before 9 Nether Heavenly Emperor and the others gamble. What are you going to do there? Gu Yenner's expression shifted and she hurriedly asked. I'm going to buy deathmatch gladiators, answered Tan Xiu. You want to buy a perfected golden immortal gladiator? Asked Gu Yenner. You must know that each perfected golden immortal gladiator is very terrifying. Do we have so many crystal essences? Tan Xiu said, a perfected golden immortal gladiator can be bought with tens of millions of crystal essences. I got a lot of crystal essences recently, enough to buy a perfected golden immortal gladiator. I'll find a way to get more crystal essences when I get to the Tianluo immortal domain and try to buy 2 early-stage perfected golden immortal gladiators. Shall I go with you, master? Asked Gu Yenner. I won't feel at ease otherwise. Tan Xiu calmly said, don't forget my former identity, Yenner. After all, I can become a supremacy stage powerhouse, so I still have a way to survive. Besides, you can't leave Mungmenarch City. Although that person has left, I don't think he can be completely at ease and will definitely send someone to pay attention to your information. He can only feel at ease if you stay in Mungmenarch City. Gu Yenner nodded silently and said, then take all the golden immortals with you. I'll only take Battle Peng and 4 golden immortals with me, said Tan Xiu. The rest will stay with you. With fewer people, it's not easy to be noticed. Wait until I buy a perfected golden immortal gladiator, then there won't be any danger. This, Gu Yenner still wanted to say something, but after seeing the firm expression on Tan Xiu's face, she finally had no choice but to agree. Shortly after, everyone returned to Mungmenarch City. Tan Xiu, Gu Yenner, and the others entered the stargazing pavilion under the attention of many people. Only 2 days later, Tan Xiu took Battle Peng and the other 4 golden immortals and left quietly. Except for the golden immortal old man in the stargazing pavilion, no one else noticed them at all. There was only one immortal domain between Hessian Castle and the perfected immortal domain. It took Tan Xiu's group of 6-7 days to rush to the perfected immortal domain. Although they encountered some troubles along the way, the other party was scared witless after Battle Peng and the others released their auras, so there was no fight. Chapter 1285. Exalted Immortal Domain. It was one of the most vast large immortal domains and ranked in the top 50 even in the entire immortal world. And the owner of this immortal domain was a supremacy stage powerhouse. A total of 18 large continents with a distance of only 1,000,000 kilometers from each other formed a prosperous gathering place in the vast universe. There were countless immortal sects on these 18 large continents and all kinds of forces were mixed together. Strength was the best way to survive here. The 16th mainland. It was the largest convict arena in the surrounding dozens of immortal domains and also the most chaotic place in the entire exalted immortal domain. This continent was filled with the strong smell of money and violence. Immortal stones, immortal crystals, crystal essences, and other precious treasures. As long as one had these, one could enjoy a heaven-like life here and look down on the poor, even if the other party was a golden immortal. When Tan Xiu led Battle Peng and the other 4 golden immortals through the spatial gate and landed on this continent, he spent a lot of immortal stones and appeared in the central city of the 16th mainland through a teleportation array. Central City. A late-stage perfected golden immortal presided over the place and 4 early-stage and mid-stage perfected golden immortals assisted him. However, they rarely appeared in front of others unless there was a major event in the 16th mainland. Tan Xiu's group of 6 rode on their immortal swords and wandered around the central city twice before finally landing at the gate of the convict arena. It looked like a crouching black behemoth and occupied a very large area. Tan Xiu's eyesight could see the scene hundreds of thousands of miles away, but he couldn't see the end of the building even if he stood outside the gate. Master! Battle Peng's group of 5 looked at the huge plaque that was 1,000 meters long and 200 meters wide with the golden words, Convict Arena, written on it with complex expressions in their eyes. They hated this place and really wanted to never step into any convict arena again unless it was absolutely necessary. Tan Xiu slowly turned around and looked at the complicated expressions of the 5 people. He sighed inwardly and said, "You've all been freed from the convict arena. You'll never come back here again unless I'm killed in the future. Therefore I bid farewell to the past. You are here as guests. You are a lord who can wield a large amount of wealth. Moreover, if it wasn't for the tempering of life and death in the convict arena, would all of you have your current cultivation realms? How could he have such combat strength? Remember my words, there are always two sides to every coin. It all depends on what perspective you use and what aspect of the problem you are looking at." Battle Peng and the other four exchanged glances and nodded heavily. They had always thought that it was a shameful experience that they could not bear to recall. However, after Tan Xiu's guidance, they suddenly realized that without the life and death tempering in the convict arena, they would not have the strength of a late-stage golden immortal powerhouse. In order to temper themselves, they would often hover on the edge of life and death countless times. Compared to them, other than the restriction of freedom, what other difference was there? All of a sudden, the enlightenment of the five people caused their mental states to transform. Even though it was difficult for them to comprehend more of the truth, at the very least, they had the heart of a strong person. Any hardship was a form of training for life. Any danger was the cornerstone of the road to a stronger one. Tan Xiu looked at the five people and was keenly aware that there was a slight change in their aura. Although the change in aura was very weak, the knot in their hearts had been untied. As long as their hearts were firm and they worked hard to cultivate, there would eventually be a glimmer of hope in the future to break through to the perfected golden immortal realm. "Go in." Tan Xiu nodded with satisfaction and turned to step into the gate of the convict arena. The spacious space was like being in a world cast of steel. At the top of a height of 10,000 meters, there were finely carved murals. Soft crystals exuded a milky white light, illuminating the inside as if it was daytime. On both sides of the wide corridor, close to the steel walls, were statues of ferocious birds and beasts baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. The light emitted by the rubies and sapphires intersected, and a fragrant spiritual liquid was sprayed from the mouths of the ferocious birds and beasts, forming a beautiful picture. On the side of the statue beside the corridor, there was a beautiful female attendant standing quietly. Every time a guest came, one of the female attendants would come out from the outermost female attendants to greet and serve the guest. Qinyu. She was an orphan girl raised by a loose immortal. Because the loose immortal failed to cross the tribulation, she finally joined the convict arena and became a guest attendant with the help of her good sister in order to support herself. Recently, Qinyu's life had been very difficult because her only good sister had been seriously injured because she had offended an arrogant and despotic guest. In order to buy healing elixirs for her good sister, she not only consumed all the immortal stones she had saved for more than 10 years, but also owed the Water Conservancy sect a high-interest loan. Half a year. There was only half a year left to repay the Water Conservancy sect's high-interest loan. If she didn't collect enough immortal stones within half a year, she would be captured by the Water Conservancy sect and become a lowly slave. Countless times, she looked forward to meeting a generous guest. Even if the reward was higher than the other guests, she would be grateful to tears. There are guests coming. Qinyu's fleeting eyes suddenly froze. When she looked at the 6 people walking in the distance, her eyes finally fell on Tan Xiu, and suddenly a look of disappointment grew in her heart. According to her more than 10 years of experience, handsome young cultivators were generally not very generous. Most of the guests with big bellies and rich auras were very generous. As long as one could coax them and make them happy, the reward would be a lot more. However, according to the order, Qinyu could only greet them with disappointment and said, "Welcome, distinguished guests. I'm Attendant Qinyu, and I'm your guide during your stay in the convict arena. You can consult me if you have any questions." "Lead the way," said Tan Xiu calmly with a nod. Qinyu gently nodded and turned to walk inside. But the moment she turned around, the disappointment in her eyes became more intense. That was because when ordinary guests came, they would casually throw a few immortal stones as a reward, which would make the attendant serve them more attentively. Soon after, when everyone disappeared in the front corridor, the dozens of female attendants on both sides of the corridor who were closest to Qin Yu's previous position showed a mocking look. They clearly saw that Qin Yu didn't get the reward just now. Wenwen usually didn't have a good relationship with Qin Yu because she had some enmity with her good friend. With no guests nearby, Wenwen sneered and said, "Qin Yu is such an idiot. She gave all her belongings to that slut to buy healing pills and even borrowed money from the Water Conservancy sect at high interest. If she can't get enough immortal stones after half a year, she'll be miserable." Another female attendant gloated and said, "Who told her to meddle in other people's business? She doesn't even know how capable she is, right? She even helped others. Just wait and see. With her bad luck, let alone half a year, she probably won't be able to get enough immortal stones even in a year. I just don't know if she'll be sold to a brothel or sold to a rich family as a slave after half a year. She'll do whatever she can. It's really a pity that Qin Yu has such a docile character, yet she ended up in such a situation. I hope she can pray for her own good." I kind of sympathize with Qin Yu, but when I think about her friend, I immediately feel that she deserves it. Just wait and see. At that time, not only will Qin Yu be out of luck, but that slut will also be out of luck. I hope they'll all be out of luck. The smile on Wenwen's face grew wider as her gaze swept across the faces of the girls. She was also praying for Qin Yu and her good sister to be out of luck. Suddenly, her expression changed as she noticed that several guests were quickly approaching. Her eyes immediately lit up because the fat middle-aged man in the lead was dressed like a nouveau riche. Generally, when they met such guests, they would get a lot of rewards. "Lead the way." When the fat middle-aged man saw Wenwen coming up to greet him, he didn't even give her time to speak. He casually threw out an immortal crystal and walked inside in high spirits. After a while, there was a burst of exclamations in the corridor, because they rarely met such a generous guest. They were rewarded with an immortal crystal at the beginning, which was a total of 100 immortal stones. If the service was better and the other party was very satisfied, they would probably get more rewards. For a moment, pairs of envious eyes lingered in the direction where Wenwen and the fat middle-aged man disappeared. Tan Xiu strolled in the seemingly endless corridor. His seemingly light footsteps were actually very fast. In the blink of an eye, he could move hundreds of meters forward. Qin Yu, who was only at the nascent soul stage, was wrapped by Battle Peng's immortal force. She didn't even need to move her feet to steadily follow beside Tan Xiu. "Qin Yu, right?" Qin Yu hurriedly nodded. Tan Xiu said, "It has been more than 2,000 years since I last came to the prison arena of the Great Luo Immortal Domain. I don't know much about the current situation here. Talk to me about the situation here." "More than 2,000 years?" Qin Yu's eyes revealed a look of disbelief because the guest in front of her was really too young. Even the aura on his body was full of vitality. He didn't look like an old monster who had lived for more than 2,000 years at all. However, Qin Yu also knew that the appearance of an immortal could be constantly adjusted and changed in the process of cultivation. Even an old monster who had lived for 10,000 years might look like a teenager. In addition, the smart Qin Yu realized that the guest in front of her had a very high cultivation level. At least, he was a powerhouse above the immortal realm. In the face of such a powerhouse, Qin Yu's heart finally had a trace of expectation. Because many great figures in the immortal world, once they took action, the reward would not be a small amount. The return from the immortal world is coming to an end. Quiet Night has made a ranking of all the women who appeared in the immortal world on the WeChat public account. Brothers and sisters can also participate in this ranking. Please search for Quiet Night Thoughts in the WeChat subscription account, or directly enter JS00 to follow. Quiet Night updated Han Qingwu's character pictures and ranking on the public account yesterday. Everyone can express their opinions freely. _. Chapter 1286. Qin Yu's attitude became more respectful. She quickly organized her words and introduced, "Honored guest, I don't know much about the situation more than 2,000 years ago. I don't know the difference between 2,000 years ago and now. The first half of the convict arena is now filled with shops selling all kinds of resources, all of which belong to the convict arena. The second half is the convict arena's cage, the place where the deathmatch gladiators fight from weak to strong and so on. From the weakest to the strongest and so on. The deepest part is the place where perfected golden immortal gladiators fight each other. Through Qin Yu's explanation, Tan Xiu had a better understanding of the situation here. There wasn't much difference from 2,000 years ago, except that the chief steward here had been replaced, and most of the senior management had been replaced by new people. Passing through the row upon row of shops and seeing the dazzling array of goods, Tan Xiu's heart was full of longing, but he still tried to restrain it. His main purpose in coming here was to buy perfected golden immortals. He didn't want to waste money even if it was a good treasure. Qin Yu, you're participating in the gambling fight. Every level of the convict arena's cage has a different ratio, right? Asked Tan Xiu calmly. You're right, sir. The gambling fight in the convict arena's cage used to be the higher the level, the higher the odds of winning, said Qin Yu. But it's no longer the case now. It's a comprehensive evaluation based on the strength of each gladiator in the convict arena's cage, as well as their combat record, and then the odds are set at any time. Tan Xiu's eyes lit up and asked, "What's the highest odds here?" Qin Yu thought for a moment and said, "The highest odds in the last decade was a fight 4 years ago. The odds were 42 times. If you win, you can win 42 times the amount of the capital. If you lose, you'll lose everything. I still remember that fight. Most people lost everything, while a few people suddenly became rich." Tan Xiu smiled and nodded. The convict arena finally has some new and exciting rules. I'm looking forward to this trip even more. Let's go. Take me to the celestial immortal convict arena's cage to test my skills. Qin Yu's eyes became even brighter because the higher the level of the cage, the stronger the strength of the guest. This was common sense that she had learned in the convict arena. Therefore, she was even more certain that the guest in front of her was a powerhouse above the immortal realm. One of the countless prison cages. When Tan Xiu and the others, led by Qin Yu, stepped into the portal, they saw the two heaven immortals fighting fiercely in the distance, as well as the heated scene in the spectator seats. There was a roar. Curses. Cheers. Every sound entered his ears. Tan Xiu's expression was calm. Under the guidance of Qin Yu, he watched the records of 360 deathmatch gladiators in this prison cage. After that, he came to the auditorium and found a place to sit down. This kind of gambling fight. They relied on experience and analysis. Only a small number of people relied on luck. Although Tan Xiu was very weak now, he still had the vision of a supremacy stage expert. Therefore, he could easily judge who was stronger and who was weaker in a fight between heaven immortals. Battle Peng will follow me. The 4 of you go and play. 1 million immortal crystals each. If you lose, you lose. But if you win, you can keep 10% and give the rest to me. Tan Xiu took out the immortal crystals and handed them to the 4. After that, he looked at the fight in the convict arena, which was nearing the end. Understood. The 4 glanced at each other and immediately took the immortal crystals given by Tan Xiu and left the convict arena. Tan Xiu looked at the fight in the convict arena and looked at Qin Yu with great interest. He said with a faint smile, "Do you want to bet?" "What do you mean?" Qin Yu was stunned and a confused look appeared on her beautiful face. "You choose the 2 people fighting in the convict arena and I'll choose the rest," Tan Xiu said with a faint smile. "If you win, I'll give you an immortal stone. If I win, you give me an immortal stone. How about it?" Qin Yu slightly furrowed her brows. She hesitated for a moment and then shook her head. "I'm really sorry. I can't afford to lose." Tan Xiu was surprised and asked, "You work in the convict arena and receive more than 1 immortal stone as a reward every time you receive a guest, right? Yet you're telling me that you can't afford to bet?" "I really can't afford to bet. I still owe a high-interest loan," said Qin Yu bitterly. "Every immortal stone is very, very important to me now." Tan Xiu looked at Qin Yu with a strange expression. The little girl looked gentle and weak, completely the type with a very docile character. Yet, she still owed a high-interest loan? You can't judge a book by its cover. Tan Xiao secretly sighed inwardly and no longer mentioned the bet. 2 hours later, the next fight in the convict cage began. Tang Xiao had observed the combat records and specific information of these two men, so he could judge who would win the moment they boarded the convict cage. Go and bet 1,000,000 crystal essences on Blazing Flame Celestial Immortal's victory. Tan Xiao handed a temporary interspatial ring to Battle Peng and calmly said. Battle Peng hesitated for a moment before he received the ring and then said in a low voice, "The 4 of them have left, Master. If I leave again your side, don't worry." Tan Xiao waved his hand. "No one can kill me unless it's a perfected golden immortal." Battle Peng didn't know where Tan Xiao's confidence came from. But as his subordinate, he could only follow Tan Xiao's instructions and quickly rush to the exchange counter. His speed was very fast. His purpose was to seize the time to exchange the gambling deed and then quickly return to Tan Xiao's side to protect his safety. A dozen meters away, a white-robed young man dressed like a frail scholar turned to look at Tan Xiao with a bit of surprise. After pondering for a moment, he shook his head and said, "Fellow immortal, the Blazing Flame Celestial Immortal in the convict arena is just a mid-level Celestial Immortal, whereas Freshwater Celestial Immortal is a high-level Celestial Immortal. Besides, water restrains fire, and Freshwater Celestial Immortal can suppress Blazing Flame Celestial Immortal in both aspects. Why do you still bet so heavily? Is it because of the 3-to-1 odds?" Tan Xiao turned to look at the young man. After observing his appearance, he found that he didn't have much hostility and didn't commit many killings. Furthermore, his cultivation should be at the profound immortal stage, so he lightly smiled and said, "Horses don't get fat without night grass, and people don't get rich without windfall. Only by taking an unconventional path and daring to take risks can we seek greater benefits. Everyone thinks that Freshwater Celestial Immortal can win, but I'm doing the opposite and betting on Blazing Flame Celestial Immortal to win in the end." Taking an unconventional path? Horses don't get fat without night grass, and people don't get rich without windfall? The eyes of the young man in white instantly lit up. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it made sense. After observing Tan Xiao deeply for a while, he slightly nodded and then turned to his 2 companions beside him and said, "I'm going to bet on Blazing Flame Celestial Immortal's victory." "Are you crazy? Are you sick? You're going to bet on Blazing Flame Celestial Immortal just because you listened to that brat's nonsense?" The other 2 young men looked incredulous and spoke one after another. The young man in white took a deep breath and firmly said, "I've decided to bet on Blazing Flame Celestial Immortal just because he said something that I agree with. Don't worry, I won't bet too much. I'll accept it even if I lose." "How much are you going to buy, then?" asked one of the young men. 1,000,000 immortal crystals, answered the young man in white. "Hiss!" The other 2 young men immediately gasped after hearing it. The 3 of them were friends who knew each other very well. They grew up together, cultivated together, and belonged to the same sect. It was very clear to them how much wealth they had. 1,000,000 immortal crystals was probably 1/5 of his wealth. "Forget it. Since you've made up your mind, it's useless for us to persuade you. I'll bet on Freshwater Celestial Immortal's victory. I'll also bet on Freshwater Celestial Immortal's victory." The 2 of them pondered for a while and then said one after another. The young man in white turned to look at Tan Xiao and found Tan Xiao giving him an appreciative look. His heart immediately relaxed a lot. As a matter of fact, he was also gambling. If he lost, he would lose 1/5 of his wealth, and if he won, he would win 3/5 of his wealth. Inside the convict arena's cage, Blazing Flame Celestial Immortal's heart was surging with flames of anger. His murderous eyes were firmly locked on Freshwater Celestial Immortal, who had a contemptuous look on his face. He had already fought a total of 107 battles in the convict arena. Other than the 2 battles where both sides were heavily injured and ended in a draw, the other 105 battles had all ended with his victory. But this time, he was keenly aware that the people in the convict arena probably wanted him dead. Otherwise, they wouldn't have arranged Freshwater Celestial Immortal as his opponent. After all, Anyone with a discerning eye could see that Freshwater's celestial immortal could suppress him in terms of cultivation level and immortal law. You're finally going to use that move? Blazing Flame's celestial immortal was unwilling, but he had no choice but to use it in order to survive. Freshwater's celestial immortal contemptuously looked at Blazing Flame's celestial immortal, hooked his finger, and smilingly said, "I won't bully you. I'll let you have 3 moves. If you can't defeat me in 3 moves, you'll die." 3 moves? A fierce intent flashed inside Blazing Flame's celestial immortal's heart. His figure instantly transformed and 8 figures appeared at the same time. Every single one of them was burning with raging flames. Then, they constantly moved and surrounded Freshwater's celestial immortal from 8 directions and launched fierce attacks. "You're still using the same old trick." Freshwater's celestial immortal had long studied Blazing Flame's celestial immortal's battle record and watched his fighting methods. He found that Blazing Flame's celestial immortal used the same old trick to deal with him, so he immediately despised him. As he unleashed a blue immortal sword, it instantly turned into layers of water-curtain swordlights that blocked the 8 figures outside. Infinite destruction. Blazing Flame's celestial immortal roared inwardly. Suddenly his 8 figures were torn to shreds. As the sky was filled with flames, fireballs dozens of meters in diameter appeared out of thin air in the sea of fire. At the same time, a flaming spear hidden in one of the fireballs blasted toward Freshwater's celestial immortal. Chapter 1287. What? Freshwater's celestial immortal's complexion changed dramatically. He could feel that Blazing Flame's aura had increased several times in a flash, and he could even feel the surrounding space boiling. An unprecedented sense of crisis made his hair stand on end, and he subconsciously wanted to avoid it. However, he was surrounded from all sides and caught off guard. Although he desperately stimulated the immortal force in his body to build up a defense, the violent sea of fire and fireballs bombarded him, causing his body to constantly shake. Every time he shook, he would spit out a mouthful of blood. When thousands of fireballs bombarded his body, his last layer of defense was shattered into pieces. The last one. Freshwater's celestial immortal's eyes flashed with madness. Because his immortal sword had been bombarded to pieces, he gathered all the power he could into his fists and fiercely bombarded the last fireball he sensed. He was seriously injured. He had to block all of them. Freshwater's celestial immortal roared. When his fist bombarded the fireball, it exploded in an instant. The result was 100 times easier than he had imagined, making him look stunned. But this expression only lasted for 1/100th of a second before his heart turned cold. How is this possible? Freshwater's celestial immortal looked down at the bowl-sized hole in the middle of his chest. He could even see his half-broken heart, which was still burning with flames. Underestimating the enemy is always a taboo in a fight. Blazing Flame grinned. As the immortal spear returned to his hand, he watched Freshwater's celestial immortal fall to the ground in disbelief. He immediately turned around and walked toward the exit of the convict prison with satisfaction. In this fight, even if he used his final trump card to kill Freshwater's celestial immortal, it would not be easy and he would have to pay a heavy price. Who would have thought Freshwater's celestial immortal would be so arrogant and commit a taboo in a fight? Therefore, he only suffered a minor injury as a side effect of using a secret technique. Throughout the convict prison, tens of thousands of gambling fighters in the audience stood up with angry expressions on their faces and cursed loudly. Only a small number of people revealed expressions of ecstasy, and most of these people were just making wild guesses. In the back row, White Mountain's celestial immortal stared blankly at the departing figure of Flaming Celestial Immortal. An inexplicable and strange emotion surged in his heart. He won? Just because of someone else's words, he lost his mind and took the risk, and he actually won? And it wasn't a small sum of money? He slowly turned his head and looked at his 2 companions who were cursing angrily, venting their anger at losing their fortune. Then he shifted his gaze to Tan Xiu. When he realized that the other party was looking at him and giving him a meaningful smile, he suddenly shivered. Could it be? Had this man guessed that Flaming Flame Celestial Immortal would win? Could it be that he inferred it from the records and specific information of Flaming Flame Celestial Immortal and Freshwater Celestial Immortal? If that's the case, then isn't he too terrifying? Beside Tan Xiao, Qin Yu's beautiful face was also filled with shock. Tan Xiao had given Battle Peng a total of 1 million crystal essences. She used to think that Tan Xiao had money to burn, but he had to lose in this kind of place. Who would have thought that he would actually win in a short time? 1 million crystal essences. He won 3 million crystal essences. 3 million crystal essences. It took Qin Yu a long time to figure out how many immortal stones 3 million crystal essences were equivalent to. After she figured it out, she nearly fainted from the shock. That was 30 billion immortal stones. Battle Peng, who stood beside Tan Xiao, asked in a low voice, "Do you need me to exchange for it, master?" "No need. Let's continue playing." Tan Xiao shook his head lightly. Battle Peng slightly nodded. He had deep admiration for Tan Xiao's steadiness. It must be noted that 3 million crystal essences was not a small number. On the seats several meters away. After venting, the two companions of the white-robed youth finally sat back in their chairs. They had bet a lot this time, but they lost, which made them feel very pained. Suddenly, one of them looked at the white-robed youth and murmured, "I seem to remember that you bet on Blazing Flame Celestial Immortal's victory, Fire Candle?" The white-robed youth, Fire Candle, smiled and nodded. "I did bet on Blazing Flame Celestial Immortal's victory." The two men glanced at each other with jealousy in their eyes at the same time. The white-robed youth didn't notice the eyes of his two companions. He got up and came to Tan Xiao. He bowed and said, "Thank you for your auspicious words, fellow immortal. Can I have the honor to invite you for a drink after you finish playing here?" "That's right, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Fire Candle of the Star-Seizing Sect. May I know how to address you, fellow immortal?" Tan Xiao pointed to the seat next to him and lightly smiled. "You can call me Great Tang Immortal. As for drinking, we'll talk about it later. I still have a lot of things to do." After Fire Candle sat down next to Tan Xiao, he respectfully said, "If Great Tang Immortal friend is done with your business, I hope you can do me the honor." "All right." Tan Xiao slightly nodded. Fire Candle asked again, "Great Tang Immortal friend, do you still want to play?" Tan Xiao smiled and said, "I'll play some more." Fire Candle thought for a while and said, "Since Great Tang Immortal friend wants to play, then I'll accompany you to play. In any case, I won 3 million immortal crystals this time, so I'll take them all out and gamble with Great Tang Immortal. Aren't you afraid of losing it all?" Tan Xiao asked with a smile. "Losing it won't be a loss for me. After all, the immortal crystals I won are an unexpected windfall." Fire Candle smiled. Tan Xiao couldn't help laughing and said, "You have a good mentality." Shortly after, the next contestants entered the convict cage. Tan Xiao quietly analyzed for a while and felt that one of them had more than 80% chance of winning, so he looked at Battle Peng and said, "By Cloud Mist Celestial Immortal with 4 million crystal essences." "Understood." Battle Peng replied and walked toward the exchange counter with 4 million crystal essences. Fire Candle stared blankly at Battle Peng's back as he left. His lips squirmed a few times before he forced a smile and said, "Great Tang Immortal friend, you really don't take the usual path. Cloud Mist Celestial Immortal is an expert in illusions. Although his cultivation has reached the late stage of the Celestial Immortal stage, his opponent is Ardent Azure Celestial Immortal, who is known as an immortal slaughtering machine. Ardent Azure Celestial Immortal's combat record and terrifying killer move have killed many late-stage Celestial Immortals. Although the odds for this match are 2-1, it's always good to earn more." Tan Xiao smiled and said, "Losing is not a big deal. A loss was a loss." In any case, the 3 million crystal essences he had just won was also a win. "If I win, I can win 8 million crystal essences at once." Fire Candle hesitated for a while before he forced a smile and said, "Forget it. Today Fire Candle, will risk my life to accompany you. Since Great Tang Immortal Friend said that Cloud Mist Celestial Immortal can win, then I'll bet with you. Not far away. Fire Candle's two companions looked disdainful. They didn't know that Fire Candle was so stupid before. Just because of a lucky win, he became so complacent. Such a match. In particular, one of them was Ardent Azure Celestial Immortal, who was known as an immortal slaughtering machine. Yet he actually followed that unknown young man to gamble? Forget it. Winning or losing is someone else's business. Since he wants to taste the taste of losing, then let's not persuade him. I'll bet 2 million immortal crystals. As long as I win, I can earn back my previous losses. I'll also bet 2 million immortal crystals. As long as I win, I'll gain something from this trip. But if I lose, I'll just have to live frugally for the next 100 years and take more risks to earn immortal crystals. After the two of them showed a firm look, they immediately followed Fire Candle and rushed toward the exchange counter. Tan Xiao heard their conversation and couldn't help but secretly shake his head. Although he wasn't 100% sure, 80% was already very high. These two people actually bet more than the last time. It was simply the mentality of desperados. Soon after, the battle inside the convict prison's cage began with countless roars. Cloud Mist Antenna took the lead and directly summoned clouds and mist. The colorful clouds and mist decorated the entire space like a dream. Kill! Ardent Azure Celestial Immortal didn't have the slightest bit of carelessness. He knew that he must go all out in the face of any opponent. Freshwater Celestial Immortal paid a painful price for his arrogance in the last match. This was a bloody example. Time flew by. The two people fought crazily, and this battle lasted for a whole day. The result of this whole day of fighting was that Ardent Azure Celestial Immortal had the upper hand, but he was also riddled with scars. As for Cloud Mist Antenna, one of his arms was cut off, and his clothes were dyed red with blood. It's about time. Tan Xiao stared at the two people fighting, and a thought flashed in his mind. If Cloud Mist Celestial Immortal doesn't have a trick to win, I'm afraid he will lose this match. But if he does, the one who will lose will be Ardent Azure Celestial Immortal. 80%. It was Tan Xiao's bet on Cloud Mist Celestial Immortal's trick to win. This method, he inferred from the data of Cloud Mist Celestial Immortal's previous battles, had an absolute 80% chance. Spirit Freeze. After Cloud Mist Celestial Immortal was sent flying by Ardent Azure Celestial Immortal's sword, he suddenly roared inwardly. At the same time, a transparent golden thread shot out from his left little finger and instantly entangled Ardent Azure Celestial Immortal who was chasing him. In the next moment, his body stopped flying backward and rushed toward Ardent Azure Celestial Immortal. No one noticed it. Ardent Azure Celestial Immortal's face turned sluggish at this moment, as if his whole body was frozen. This sluggishness lasted for less than a second, but it was in this less than a second that Cloud Mist Celestial Immortal's immortal artifact, Cloud Sail, shot out a beam of light and directly killed Ardent Azure Celestial Immortal. In the auditorium, Tan Xiao turned to look at the dumbfounded Fire Candle and said with a faint smile, "We seem to have won again." Fire Candle turned his head with difficulty. When he saw Tan Xiao's expression, he fiercely raised his fist and waved it a few times in the void. Then he roared in ecstasy, "Great Tang fellow immortal, you're amazing. 3 chapters have been released. I'm weekly begging for a monthly vote support." Chapter 1288. Tan Xiao had never cared about other people's praises, but seeing Fire Candle's 2 companions in a daze made him secretly feel refreshed. "Those who believe in me shall have eternal life." Tan Xiao had forgotten where he had heard this sentence, but it was so appropriate to use it in this situation. He won 2 rounds in a row. Tan Xiao didn't want to play again because he knew very well that no one could win forever. He had placed a heavy bet in these 2 rounds, and the convict arena would never let him win too much wealth in the same convict arena. "I'm going to exchange it and then play somewhere else." Qin Yu hurriedly asked, "Where do you want to go next, honored guest?" "I'm going to the perfected golden immortal convict arena," said Tan Xiao. I'll watch the fights between powerhouses when I have nothing to do. It'll be helpful for my cultivation and combat. Qin Yu looked hesitant and said, "Honored guest, you don't need to pay the entrance fee to enter the Golden Immortal Convict Arena. But if you want to enter the perfected Golden Immortal Convict Arena, you'll need to pay a considerable entrance fee." "How much?" asked Tan Xiu curiously. "Everyone needs to pay 100 immortal crystals," said Qin Yu. Tan Xiu nodded lightly and said, "It's just a small amount of money. No need to care about it. Let's go." Having said that, he suddenly turned to look at Fire Candle with a smile on the corner of his mouth and asked, "Do you want to go and play with me? Maybe there'll be a surprise there." Fire Candle hesitated for a moment before nodding and saying, "Since Great Tang Immortal Friend invited me, I'll naturally go." However, after he finished speaking, he saw his two companions shake their heads and leave in a hurry without saying a word. His joyful mood gradually calmed down. Tan Xiu glanced at him and walked outside while lightly smiling. Life in this world is full of experiences. It's normal to have friends all over the world along the way. But there's no such thing as a never-ending banquet in this world. Too many friends can only accompany you on your cultivation journey. With the heart of an expert, looking at the road ahead, in the end, the more you walk, the lonelier you get. Tan Xiu's words kept echoing in Fire Candle's mind. Only when Tan Xiu was about to walk out of the big door did Fire Candle secretly let out a sigh of relief and quickly chased after him. 2 hours later, everyone rode the flying chariot and came to the perfected Golden Immortal level prison. 2 Golden Immortals were guarding outside the door, and their eyes flashed with surprise when they saw them. One of them said, "Are you sure you want to enter this prison?" Tan Xiu nodded slowly, then paid 400 immortal crystals and stepped into the whirlpool door. The next moment, his figure appeared inside the convict prison. "Great Tang Immortal Friend, here are 100 immortal crystals." Huozhu took out 100 immortal crystals from his interspatial ring and handed it over to Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu waved his hand casually and said, "Give it to her." Fire Candle turned to Qin Yu and looked at her dull eyes. Then he said, "Why don't you take it?" Qin Yu's lips squirmed a few times. Finally, she gratefully looked at Tan Xiu, took the 100 immortal crystals, and quickly stuffed them into her interspatial ring. She still needed 40,000 immortal stones, which was equivalent to 400 immortal crystals, for the high-interest loan she owed. Now that she got a reward of 100 immortal crystals at once, it was simply too happy for her. "Thank you, honored guest," Qin Yu said gratefully. Tan Xiu smiled faintly and walked toward the iron cages. There were not many iron cages here, only 36 in total, with a total of 36 perfected golden immortals inside. Without exception, these 36 perfected golden immortals all had a blue and white flower mark on their foreheads, which was a symbol of their former enslavement. Honored guest, according to the latest perfected golden immortal level match, there are still 8 hours left in this convict prison. At that time, 2 of the 36 deathmatch gladiators will engage in a brutal fight. You see, there are already many honored guests here. Once they participate in the gamble, the minimum threshold is 1 million immortal crystals. Qin Yu was a bit worried. She actually didn't want Tan Xiu to gamble here. After all, she had worked in the convict arena for more than a decade, and it was the first time that an honored guest rewarded her with so many immortal crystals. Tan Xiu nodded with a smile. As he passed by each cage, he would read all the information of each perfected golden immortal gladiator 3 times. The 27th, Tan Xiu stood in front of the iron cage and stopped. Although his expression was extraordinarily calm, his heart was raging with anger. This anger didn't come from the female gladiator in the cage, but from the person who caught the surrounding female gladiators. Star Tears. She was the younger sister of the sovereign of the Rosefinch Holy Sect, Supreme Star Soul, and Tan Xiu's aunt in the immortal world. She was once the true young master of the Rosefinch Holy Sect, the person he hated the most. But Tan Xiu regarded her as a very close person. The reason was very simple. Star Tears was cold-blooded and had taught her nephew, the hedonistic young master of the Rosefinch Holy Sect, a lesson countless times. It was also because of her that the true young master of the Rosefinch holy sect left the sect in a fit of pique and ventured into the death swamp alone. One must know that even immortal realm experts didn't dare to venture into the death swamp easily. But he had gone there and died there, so his body was occupied by Tan Xiu. The first time Tan Xiu met Star Tears, he was beaten up by her and was even captured by her to her cave residence. He was locked up for 3 months before he was released after his injuries healed. Those 3 months were absolutely painful torture for Tan Xiu. All kinds of cruel training and torture during his serious injuries shaped Tan Xiu's ability to survive in the immortal world. At first, Tan Xiu also hated his aunt Star Tears very much. But when he encountered a life-or-death crisis for the first time, he suddenly understood. It turned out that the reason he was tortured was so that he could live longer in the future. At this moment, Star Tears. Her wrists and ankles were shackled by 4 chains made of 10,000-year-old mysterious iron. Her coarse hemp clothes were tattered and stained with blood. Even her long purple hair was unkempt and messy. Tan Xiu also keenly noticed that there was a ghastly bloody wound on her left shoulder. He could clearly see the bones inside. Black Devil Miasma? Tan Xiu took a deep breath. The Black Devil Miasma could corrode the immortal body and prevent immortal force from nourishing and healing wounds. Moreover, it could bring great pain to the injured. Qin Yu, go find the steward here. Qin Yu didn't know what Tan Xiu was going to do, but she still left obediently. In just half an hour, she came back with 5 figures. The leading figure was a white-haired old man. The aura he exuded indicated that he was a perfected golden immortal. Are you the steward here? Tan Xiu didn't wait for the other party to introduce himself and asked indifferently. This old man is the steward of this convict arena, said the old man with a smile. A distinguished guest has come to visit and even ordered the attendant to find me. Is there something important? Tan Xiu pointed to the expressionless Star Tears in the iron cage and lightly said, the people under me are too poor, so I'm going to buy some perfected golden immortals to run errands. She has a good record and she's a woman, so I'll buy her. The old man was surprised and smilingly said, no problem. The gladiators of our convict arena have a clearly marked price. She's not bad here and is worth 12 million crystal essences. May I ask if little friend is going to pay the crystal essences directly? Or do you want to offset it with treasures? Tan Xiu originally only had 10 million crystal essences. Now that he had won 7 million crystal essences, he directly took out 12 million crystal essences and handed it to the old man, saying, count it and hand her over. A glint flashed in the old man's eyes. After counting it, he took out a soul plate from his interspatial ring and turned his head. Let her out. Inside the iron cage, Star Tears' cold expression was a bit moved, and a trace of emotion appeared in her expressionless eyes. She had been captured and brought here for more than 600 years. Even though she had concealed her identity and no one knew her true identity, she had experienced more than 200 battles in these 600 years. If it wasn't for the fact that she was forced to surrender during the battles, she would have died long ago. She still had the hope that someone would buy her. But the price was too high, which eventually made her gradually disappointed and eventually turned into despair. Countless times, she had thought of ending her life. But she remembered that her sect was still in crisis and that she hadn't taken revenge for this blood feud, so she kept on living again and again. A perfected golden immortal could surrender 3 times, and she had already used up the 3 chances to surrender, except for the 4 times where both sides suffered heavy losses. The Convict Arena's experts unlocked the dark steel chains. Under the berating of several experts, she staggered to the iron cage's entrance and looked at Tan Xiu's appearance. She vaguely felt that he was familiar, as though she had seen him somewhere before. However, this wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was that Tan Xiu's aura was also a bit familiar. Who is he? An ant who just broke through to the immortal stage not long ago? Star Tears searched the memories in her mind, but she still couldn't recall where she had seen this familiar young man. The old man in charge of the convict arena looked at Tan Xiu and lightly smiled. Fellow immortal, this deathmatch gladiator will be yours in the future. Please don't hesitate to look for me if you need anything in this regard in the future. I'll give you some discounts considering you're a regular customer. Alright. Tan Xiu nodded lightly. He suppressed the excitement in his heart and didn't greet Star Tears. Instead, he continued to walk toward the iron cage in the back. After reading all the information about the perfected golden immortal gladiators, he went to the back of the auditorium. From beginning to end, Tan Xiu didn't say a word to Star Tears. He didn't even look at her. He only allowed her to quietly follow by his side, acting as a guardian. Great Tang immortal friend, you're really strong. Fire Candle had been following Tan Xiu all this time and witnessed Tan Xiu taking out 12 million crystal essences to buy a perfected golden immortal gladiator. His attitude had changed dramatically compared to before. Chapter 1289. Tan Xiu didn't seem to hear Fire Candle's compliments. The scenes in his mind quickly changed. All of them were the scenes of him getting along with Star Tears. If there was anyone he could trust in the immortal world, then Star Tears was definitely one of them. However, he couldn't reveal his identity. Even if he trusted Star Tears 100%, he also knew that there was a method in the immortal world to search the memories of others. If those terrifying enemies were to attack Star Tears, there was a high chance that he would be found after searching her memories. Furthermore, through his encounter with Star Tears, Tan Xiu also realized one thing. The current situation of the Rosefinch Holy Sect was probably very bad. It was very likely that there were a lot of disciples of the Rosefinch Holy Sect in the convict arena or some other place, as well as people he cared about. And these people were likely facing great tribulations and the threat of death. I have time. I still have a lot of time. But the Rosefinch Holy Sect doesn't have much time. And they don't have much time for the people they care about. Tan Xiu clenched his fists and a cold light gradually emerged in his eyes. After a long time, he loosened his clenched fists and suppressed all the past memories in the deepest part of his heart. Fire Candle, I suddenly remembered that there's still one more important thing to do. Therefore, I can't take you here to play. Before parting, I'll give you some words. Tan Xiu stood up and turned to look at Fire Candle. What words? Fire Candle was confused. Never have the heart to harm others, but never have the heart to guard against others, said Tan Xiu. If you want to live longer, beware of everyone, even those closest to you. Fire Candle's brows tightly furrowed as he silently pondered over Tan Xiu's words. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it made sense. When he looked up again, he found that Tan Xiu had already left. I'll keep it in mind, thank you. Fire Candle took a deep breath and said in her heart. Inside the wide corridor, Tan Xiu glanced at both ends. Although there were some people passing by, he still looked at Qin Yu and lightly said, if I remember correctly, the convict arena has a special place to purchase goods. Take me there. Qin Yu nodded and said, honored guest, please follow me. Punch up. Under Qin Yu's lead, Tan Xiu arrived at the place where the convict arena specialized in purchasing goods. He looked straight at the attendant who came to greet him and lightly said, take me to your VIP lounge and inform your auction house master that a distinguished guest has arrived. The attendant respectfully took Tan Xiu to the VIP lounge on the second floor. Just as Tan Xiu took a seat, an old man in a cyan robe walked in with a smile. His eyes swept over the several people and immediately froze when he saw Star Tears. Then, he suppressed his surprise and came before Tan Xiu and smilingly said, honored guest, are you looking for me? Tan Xiu waved his right hand and motioned the other party to sit down opposite him. Then he said, I'm going to sell an ancient immortal cultivation manual and the pill formula for refining the primordial chaos Dao pill. After saying that, he took out the ancient manual and the pill formula from his interspatial ring and put them on the table in front of him. The green-robed old man's expression changed. When he quickly flipped through the ancient book and the primordial Dao pill's pill formula, his eyes revealed a shocked expression. After a long while, he slowly said, esteemed customer, the two items you want to sell are truly too valuable. I don't dare to make a decision on the price, so please wait a moment. I'll inform the manager to come over. Alright. Tan Xiu calmly nodded. Soon after, the old steward hurried over. After he checked the immortal cultivation scriptures and the pill recipes for refining the primordial Dao pill, he looked at Tang Xiu and said, "Fellow immortal, do you want to sell them directly? Or do you want to exchange them for something?" Tan Xiu thought for a while and asked, "How many perfected golden immortal gladiators do you think I can exchange them for?" The old man slightly furrowed his brows and pondered. After a long while, he slowly said, 2 perfected golden immortal gladiators and 5 million crystal essences. What do you think? 2 mid-level perfected golden immortal gladiators and 8 million crystal essences, said Tan Xiu. If you agree, I'll give you the contents of the ancient manual and the pill formula. No problem. The old man waited and finally nodded. 8 hours later, Tan Xiu appeared at the exit of the convict arena with Battle Peng, Star Tears, and 2 other mid-level perfected golden immortals. He didn't rush to leave and instead waited for his 4 golden immortal subordinates to return before he asked with a faint smile, "How's the harvest?" "It's all here, master." The 4 took out their interspatial rings and handed them to Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu's spiritual sense swept through the interspatial rings and immediately looked surprised. "You got a good harvest, huh? You actually won more than 80 million immortal crystals?" The 4 smiled and one of them respectfully said, "We know the convict arena too well and have some experience in judging and choosing." Tan Xiu faintly smiled and threw 2 million immortal crystals to each of them and 1 million immortal crystals to Battle Peng. Only then did he put away the rest and lightly said, "We've been out for some time now, so we should go back." Having said that, he turned to look at Qin Yu, who was standing a kilometer away like a delicate lotus. He flicked his finger and an interspatial ring fell into her hand. Immediately after, a group of 9 people stepped out of the convict arena's gate. Qin Yu stared blankly at the interspatial ring that appeared in her hand. When she looked up and looked in the direction of Tan Xiu again, she found that he had already disappeared. After hesitating for a while, she used her spiritual sense to look inside the interspatial ring. When she clearly saw what was inside, her delicate body slightly trembled and her eyes sparkled. 10,000 immortal crystals. It was an ancient cultivation manual. When Qin Yu took out the cultivation manual and flipped it open, a look of disbelief appeared on her beautiful face. An immortal cultivation manual? An immortal cultivation manual that can allow one to cultivate to the perfected golden immortal stage? Qin Yu's delicate body slightly trembled and 2 lines of tears rolled down her cheeks. She was a bit disappointed when she saw Tan Xiu for the first time. However, after just a short time together, the benefits she got were more than what she got after working here for more than a decade. "Thank you, benefactor." Qin Yu raised her arm and wiped the tears on her face as she muttered to herself. "Oh, are you very disappointed? Did you get humiliated? You're crying so sadly. Don't tell me you didn't even get an immortal stone as a reward for being a guide?" Wenwen strode forward with a mocking smile on her face and silently came to Qin Yu's side. Qin Yu hurriedly put the cultivation manual into the interspatial ring and turned to look at Wenwen. "You guessed wrong. Not only did I get a reward, but it's also more than you can imagine." After saying that, she went straight to the gate of the convict arena to pay off the high-interest loan. She also made a decision at this moment to quit her job in the convict arena and go to the outside world to work hard, hoping that she would be qualified to see her benefactor again in the future. Hessian Castle. After Tan Xiu led everyone back to the stargazing pavilion, he went straight to the heavenly abode artifact with Gu Yan. Looking at Gu Yan's strange expression, Tan Xiu slowly said, "Yan, what did you find out about the 3 perfected golden immortals I just brought back?" Gu Yan's lips squirmed a few times before she answered, "Aunt Blackface." "You're right, it's Aunt Star Tears," said Tan Xiu bitterly. "By chance, I found Aunt Star Tears in the perfected golden immortal cage in the convict arena of the perfected golden immortal realm. He even spent money to buy her." "Did you tell her your identity?" asked Gu Yan hurriedly. Tan Xiu shook his head. "Not only did I not tell her my identity, but I also have her soul plate. I didn't even say a word to her from beginning to end." Gu Yan's tense expression relaxed a bit and she curiously asked, Are you afraid, master? Yeah, I'm afraid. Tan Xiu forced a smile. I'm afraid that she'll find out my true identity if I talk to her. Although my previous appearance is somewhat different from my current appearance, those who are really familiar with me may be able to guess it. So, Master, there are no more than 20 people in the entire immortal world who can connect the current you with the past you. Guyan shook her head. Me, her, the two enemies, Grandpa and Grandma. And then there are the 9 of them. There are more than a dozen of them. Tan Xiu shook his head. Even if there are such people in the vast immortal world, they can only guess your identity, said Guyan. Take Aunt Blackface for example. I just observed her, and she doesn't seem to be able to recognize your identity. What should I do, Ying? Tan Xiu nodded. Should I directly return the soul plate to her and let her leave immediately? Or should I hide it from her and let her stay with us? After thinking for a long time, Guyan slowly said, Grandmaster, I think it's better to hide it from her and let her stay with us. After all, she's a perfected golden immortal. If we return the soul plate to her, but she doesn't want to leave and wants to figure out your identity, it'll be troublesome. Further, Aunt Blackface is the younger sister of the Rosefinch Holy Sex sect master. With such an identity, she actually fell to become a deathmatch gladiator in the convict arena, which means that it'll be dangerous for her to leave alone. Since you're back, then take her with you. On one hand, she can help us do things, and on the other hand, she can also ensure her safety. Have you ever thought that only a few people know her identity, but our enemies know her? Tan Xiu said. In case, just change your appearance, said Guyan. Tan Xiu gave it a thought and felt that it made sense, so he nodded and said, It seems that it's the only way. Anti-Star Tier's identity must not be revealed to anyone except the 2 of us and the 9 of them. Also, tell the 9 of them not to show any flaws in front of Anti-Star Tiers. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.